time. Once again, you are now live on Channel 8 and YouTube.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's the small one, yeah. It's the 2-page, okay.
So this is scratch.
Here we go.
Yeah.
All right, I see myself on YouTube. All right, everybody, welcome back. We are secured from lunch, and we are ready to start what will be called probably part 2 on YouTube. This afternoon, we've got administration and finance, community services, executive, and then a quick wrap up. Again, if we're scheduled to go to 3, but if we finish before that, better for everybody. All right, so we are back. We've got our everyone's back. We had a couple of changes just based on the weather outside, whether it's people remote or someone people that needs to leave due to the weather. So first up, from administration and finance is advisory committee. Kim, you're going to be walking us through that. It's going to be 2 parts, not only in the budget book, which starts on 41 paper copy, PDF 50. Cam's going to bring us through the community comparisons and the budget. So the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll start with the community comparisons, right? So I think everybody should receive the new one. It's only 2 pages. The other one is 5 pages. The numbers are not correct on that, so just disregard it.
Okay.
And then
Yep.
While going through and updating the community comparisons recently, the state has updated their numbers. So these are actually the latest and greatest numbers for budgets as of last year, with one exception for Lancaster. They never uploaded their last year's budget. So those are budget numbers from FY23. So you can see kind of we lined out the same towns that we had from the previous one. We did have a few footnotes that we wanted to put in here, but they actually become apparent as we look through kind of where the money's come from. And so taking it from top to bottom, the first section here on the general socioeconomic, this is kind of, are these towns in line in terms of population, the income per capita, and the EQB per capita. So you can see that some of these towns obviously have higher income than Templeton does, or they have lower income, right? But this is a good spread in terms of population size. Geographical locations are also going to play an important part, right? As you get further east towards Boston, I think the income is going to go up comparatively, but also their expenses go up as they go out towards Boston as well. So then the values by class. This is another section here to kind of show what the mix is of the communities, right? And you can see that a lot of them are relying on lines for the RO as the total percent of the value and the CIP is the total percent of value. This is where they're relying on a source of income. So we see it Templeton at 90%. And if you look, like Halifax is also at 90%, Dayton's at 90%. But if we go over to something like Montague, they're actually relying a lot more on industrial income and commercial income than Templeton is. So it's another way to kind of look when we're gauging through these budgets. Are they comparable or not? Unfortunately, we're not going to find anything like Templeton as we go through this community comparison, but these are a good accurate cut, and I think that's stated there. So the revenue by sources, another kind of way to take a look at the monies that we're pulling in. But the real call out here is the total budget, right? And so there's 2 lines you'll see the total budget there. The first line for Templeton, which is at $19,295, and then there's a second one, which is $22,461. The first one is without enterprise and CPA funds. So if we wanted to talk about Shirley, where they get money for the prison that they hold, we would want to take a look at the first line on the budget, which is going to be for Shirley, it's going to be 16,064. But if we look at their total budget with their CPA, CPA funds, it's only going to be 17,664. So they're getting 1.7 from other sources. Templeton, we're actually getting quite a bit of other enterprise revenue, and I think most of that's driven by light and water income that we're receiving.
Quick question on CPA funds. Is every community, is that something that you vote in? Okay, all right, great. And then, sorry, go ahead.
And actually, yeah, and so we actually receive quite a bit of enterprise funds. I mean, we're at the 3 million mark where a lot of these other communities aren't receiving that sort of supplementary income. Going to the next section, tax by class, we can see kind of the tax rates that we'd be looking at. I don't think those are supposed to be percentages, but we have a flat tax on everything between residential, industrial, commercial. Those are typically levers and the town administrator can speak to it better than I can, but usually levers that you would pull if you want to bring industry in, you want to drive your tax rate down, or if you want to drive industry out, you increase that tax rate, right? And
Right.
so as you look at some of these other communities where it's Montague is a community that does not want commercial or industrial, they're increasing their tax base there. But you see that they still have, if we go back up to the values by class section, they still have commercial and industrial value even with that tax rate that they have on their commercial properties. So the R&O of total levy on the bottom of that tax by class section, Templeton's receiving 90% of their funds from residential operations, right? And I think this always goes back to the one thing that we say in Templeton is we need more business, we need more industry, we need more commercial.
Yeah. So Deputy Assessor is actually sitting right behind you.
Doing a great job.
That was one of the big, I think it's always been close to that anyway, but this time through, Mr. Brooks was basically saying, you got a problem and you got to turn this trend around. So it's good to see the comparison in there.
And you can see that, once on the second page here, you'll see these budgets that kind of come out as relationship. But if you think about it, the more houses you build, there's additional cost to having those houses, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're building industrial factories, I mean, there's also a cost to the fire department because now they have to go in there, certify these buildings, and if they get calls for something, they got to send out the entire force. I mean, Marlboro is a good example where when I worked at Dow Chemical, the fire department was there once a month, twice a month, right? And that was because there was it wasn't a call, so to say, but something tripped and said, hey, fire department, come down here. They go there and it's usually a false alarm, but they would bill Dow Chemical for that every time because they had to send out all these fire trucks there. So when we look at residential opportunities, it's schooling, right? It's more police, it's more, public recs. And the tax base that we have, increasing those costs. Reverse relationship is every time you build an industry, there's costs associated with that. One thing that I know for a fact is in this town, water and sewer are actually under capacity. We're
Right.
way over what we should, and that's because we had the old paper mills, right? And so our sewer plant, I think, was at like a utilization, when I was on the select board, it was like 20% of what they can actually do for capacity. Water plant is a very similar story. They were made for these industrial operations. And so getting the synergy by bringing in some of these industries, you're actually offsetting some of the expense that you would incur by bringing industry in, and that's due to we have those capacities, right? And then the next section here on the second page, levy by capacity. We did talk about this at the intro last joint meeting that we had. The new growth, the debt exclusions, the maximum levy capacity and the levy ceilings here. I know what we have for potential override capacity if we really wanted to go for it. This is comparable, I would say, across the board, at least for new growth. Upton, different story. Lancaster, a little bit different story, but we actually have pretty good growth compared to, Orange. Not so much with Rutland, which are closer to home, I think, on these comparisons. So spend by funds. I broke this down into two sections because numbers are very tough to just do an analysis with. So if we look at spend by fund in dollars, but right below it is a percentage spend by fund, which I think helps common size where these towns put their interests, right? And so for education, Templeton spends 42.8% on education as a percentage of the budget. But if you look over at, we'll go to Rutland, they're spending 60% of their budget. And so this allows us, as we go through this, to kind of take, the puts and takes of how are these other towns allocating their money? And there will always be nuances, right? All these are regional agreements that they have, but there will always be nuances. I mean, for Orange, right, they have a pretty high fixed cost at 15.3%. I'm not entirely sure what's behind that in terms of line items. Kelly, what would typically be in a fixed cost line item?
Of a cost.
Yeah.
It's fixed. I mean, our list of regional and stuff, I mean, it's fixed once a year,
Okay,
then you have your, the insurance and benefits and those types of things. They might fluctuate a tiny bit, but not, but those are costs we definitely have every year.
right. And so we're at 13.2%, which means that Orange is going to have something in those accounts that's higher as a percentage of their budget. Our fire department, I mean, we're at 5.7, but I think if you look across, I mean, there is zero fire in Lancaster and Monty, which is a nuance in and of itself. I'm not sure what exactly that is. I didn't look into that or research that, but my understanding that they probably just lump it into other public safety, my guess, or they have a shared agreement somewhere else.
Cam, I have a comment on that.
Sure.
Montague is the overall town, but there's the Lake Pleasant, the Montague Center, and the Turner's Falls Fire Departments within the town.
Oh, really?
Turner's Falls operates as a water district,
Really?
and it's calculated and driven out separately when they balance out the budget.
That's interesting. So
So
there
it-
is a nuance.
There is a nuance there. That's why it comes up as a zero, but if you really drill into it, it's really not a zero.
Okay.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, this is just to help, as you guys go through this and analyze, I don't need to walk through every single line here, but this is just a way to how other towns prioritize their fund, and are we over or under on a percentage of spend? And then the last one here, shame Jeff's not here, but bond ratings, I think as we look at the bottom, we're pretty comparable to these other ones. And just for reference sake on bond rating, because sometimes they're a little confusing. So if we look at the Standard and Poor, AAA is going to be your highest. And then as it goes to a AA, and then it goes to a single A, and then it goes to triple Bs, double Bs, single Bs. And that's for your Standard and Poor, the S&P bond rating. We have a Moody's bond rating, which the equivalence of a Moody's bond rating for an AA3 is actually going to be lower than an AA2, than an AA1, and then it goes to AAA. So if we were to compare the AA's that we see here for Montague, Shirley, and Rutland, those would be coming to an AA2, which is one step above where we are at an AA3. So they have a higher bond rating than we do. And then for Rutland, they have an A2 for the Moody's rating, which is below an AA3. But just to go out and I know bond ratings are something that come up often in terms of debt servicing and what we're getting for interest rates. Municipal bonds and municipalities, they're always going to be rated as investment grade. I mean, Detroit, they went bankrupt, I think, in 2016, and they still have a AA rating when they got their bond rating back. So if you just, and the reason why is because there's a tax incentive to buy municipal bond. It's tax free. So everybody, it's more lucrative for you to go out, especially for these big banks, to take a municipal bond. That's why they'll always be investment grades. But the percentage difference between going from a AA to a AAA, you're shaving off. I mean, we're talking fractions of a fraction of a percent. And then in terms of debt,
This is awesome.
we're high on debt. We're high comparable on debt, and I mean that's due to I mean the new school is one of them. I mean we redid the police station. There's a few items that we have for debt. However, debt as a percentage of budget, we're pretty high compared to the other towns that we see, other than Shirley. Shirley has a high debt as part of their budget, but I don't think, and Adam, you'd be able to speak better to this. I don't think it's a concern as of now for our debt levels. It would be a concern if we went out and tried to, build a new fire station tomorrow, right? And then our debt's gonna go through the same again. But as of right now, I think as far as debt and bond ratings are, we're pretty healthy on our financial indicators.
Yeah, our debt's been staying relatively stable, so.
The other nuance I would add is payment and move taxes. Williamstown they have Williams College, which in some years, I looked it up, they've donated as much as $800,000 to the town for major repairs, that the town doesn't have to win the debt. But it varies from year to year. So some years it's only $100,000 or $200,000, and then other years it's, $700,000-800,000. But it's a nuance that we do not have as a town. We don't have a women's college. The other nuance would be in Sterling, the light department. They have almost $900,000 of free cash. But they have more debt than we do, so affects that.
And actually, one last thing I want to call out is the spend by fund percent under the debt services. If you look for Templeton, we're at 12.8% of the budget is dedicated to debt service. With that being said, is there any questions, any clarifying points?
No, that, it's awesome. As far as a copy of that goes, John had sent me a copy of it. I can distribute that. Do you have it?
I did send it to you.
I have it, yeah. I
Okay.
forward- I
So our
forward
office has it.
forward.
And on that Excel file too, there is all of the municipalities on there. I set it up as a formula. So if you want to change from Templeton and you want to look at Boston, just type in that very top row, overwrite Templeton with Boston, and it will pull Boston's numbers for you. So you can go through and do whatever you want to do and take whatever comparisons you want in that, the original Excel file.
Where you said your source data was?
This is the Massachusetts DOR.
Got it.
If
Okay.
you type in community comparisons for
Yeah.
Massachusetts, it's the first website that comes up. So I
Yeah.
just pulled all their data.
Oh, there it goes. Holly on the spot. All right, Kim, do you want to transition into your budget?
Sure do. So there's really, I mean, John's not here and I'm not really prepped to cover this, but
I know.
it's not a big budget.
Right.
I think, so let's, that's on the select board. So, for page 41, I think we're starting off here.
Correct.
Page 41.
So these are what they were last year, I believe, which is their conferences, annual meetings, and then we have the MMA annual meeting, which is the chair and vice chair are allowed to attend. That's pretty standard for what we see year over year. $1,800, $1,200. Next page for the 5,200s, the pre-town meeting advertisements, again, standard for what we see year over year. On 5,400, the office supplies. I'm not really certain what we're charging for office supplies, what was previously spent on that account.
This would be for like the pre-town meeting.
Yeah, the printing of your guys' votes and stuff for the town meeting.
Okay.
Usually that's printed as a booklet or something to go with it, and that's the cost.
Okay. You can see I don't have much detail on that, so we'll go to the next page at 5,600. Emergency reserve, it is looking like the town admins and the town administrator rather recommending $10,000 down. I think as an advisory committee, we had discussed in meeting, it's something that we're comfortable with bringing it down $10,000. Reason being is we actually have a pretty decent emergency reserve fund as is now. And $10,000 isn't too much for us. And hopefully we can get some good cash windfalls and replenish if need be in the fall town meeting.
If I can,
This year more than any. I think this year could be a really heavy year for requests.
Having a special town meeting, I think is the, when we get the
Free cash.
that's where we can worry about that discussion for, which will be next year's fall town meeting, right? Not this yet, not this year, but the following town, so it's a year and a half away.
if I can, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I intend to bring this up after this fiscal year only because we're level funded and I had to make this work. So my intention is to put this back up to 50,000 fiscal year 24, 52.5. That would be my goal.
Okay.
We'll hold you to that.
I'm gonna play back the soundbite.
Good memory.
Any questions for advisory committee? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much,
I
gentlemen.
think I would have been able to answer.
All right, going to, let's see,
Cheryl.
going to our agenda. Treasurer collector, Cheryl. Hey, paper copy 58, electronic copy 67. Hi, Cheryl.
Hey, how's everything going?
Good. How are you? Yeah, Michelle when we get home.
Not sure if Cheryl wanted to go through a narrative really quick.
Yeah, it's like I ask everyone, if you've got your narrative in there, you don't need to go through it. If there's any high points or otherwise, most people are just jumping right into their 5100. But if you have any opening statements.
No, not really.
Okay.
So 5,100 payroll, obviously.
Cheryl. what's
I
up?
just want to say congratulations on your collector certification.
Oh, thank you. Mine went up just based on contract. And then the deputy, we are going to bring her up. When she came in at a clerk rate. So we're trying to get that corrected as we go along. So she just made 6 months, so she's doing very well. And I think she's the first person that's gonna be willing to go to school. So
Oh, good.
hopefully she'll be trained too, and we'll have another
That's Danielle.
certified person going forward, which
Danielle
will be
Kirby.
nice. And then the certification stipend is added into that. 5110, you can support. This is mostly my memberships for Worcester County Treasurers Collectors Association and the Mass Collector Treasurer. There's the schools, which now hopefully Danielle will be going as well. So there's 2 of us for everything. For the memberships as well. We pay for each of us, so, and then travel back and forth to school, and the Cape Conference and that. I don't think much has changed in here. Maybe just a travel amount.
Yeah, based on the budget year that we're having, where can you accept a little, where can you accept a hit there? Or are all of them mandatory? You're just gonna make it work. I mean,
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna have to, yeah.
I won't-
'Cause
I
we
won't
gotta
make
go to
you do
school.
The math now.
We
Just
gotta go to
do-
school if you want
Right.
us to be certified, so
Right?
it comes, unfortunately, comes at a cost, so. And all these memberships, Worcester County, that's once a year thing for each of us. But that's all the little meetings that we go to, and they bring in, speakers for each of the meetings, so they're good
Are any of
meetings.
them gone virtual?
Yes, they have. I've done a few
Right, so
Zoom.
maybe I'm looking.
I have done a few Zoom.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
so we might,
your travel, you might be able to hit budget by using
Exactly.
maximum use of virtual.
yeah. And sometimes they don't charge if they do the Zoom, as opposed to sometimes you go to a meeting, it's a minimum fee,
Interesting.
25
Okay,
bucks or something. So some of them they haven't.
yeah,
So it's,
yeah, they got budgets too.
I may be able to,
Fine.
save something in there.
Okay,
Purchase of services, these are our bills. Globe does our excise billing the first one of the year, because it's like 10,000 bills. And then they do the 2 real estate bills that we send out. So that's that, and the annual report to Hilltop, that's their charge.
Mr. Chair, are those fixed, you said?
They're not fixed fees. Hilltop goes up usually each year a little bit. And Globe, depends on how many bills we mail. If postage goes up, we might get hit a little there. It depends on how many bills we mail out. Supplies. I buy envelopes with stamps already on them. And we've been mailing more and more notices and that type of stuff, so, and this is just.
is that a good, is it a good thing in terms of turnaround?
Yeah, it's just we're mailing out more late notices for a lot of things. People
Yeah.
just can't afford to pay their bills.
Okay,
So we're mailing a lot of reminders and things like that.
okay.
But I don't think I changed this one at all. Just the price of the stamps, miscellaneous stamps.
And those just keep going up.
Exactly. It's nothing you can do about it. The other, this is the tax title ad. The attorney, I just sent more than a dozen to foreclosure for land court. So this is, you know, his fees, miscellaneous mailings. He mailed out notices for me prior to that. The cost of the sale that we have to put in the paper every, you know, the tax taking ad.
Yep.
So that's all these fees. Those are yearly.
Gardner, is,
Gardner News.
yeah, they remain consistent.
Actually, they printed it so small this year. I had somebody new. I mean, I don't know if you, it's in the hall. You need a magnifying glass. So it was a lot cheaper than it was prior, but you can't see anybody's name on it. So
Interesting.
it was a little cheaper this year. I think we need to go in between where we were last year and this year. So it can be a little readable, but you know, and every year I seem to be having more that I have to put in. So it's kind of a cost per. And that's all I have for my budget. I have the debt. I don't know.
What page number is that one?
I'm gonna do that now.
177.
177.
Yeah, and this Cheryl finished this up and I worked on it with the accountant as well. So just to make it a little bit more clear where you see how it's broken down.
So we took off the school, obviously, we just paid off in February and rolled that into 3 notes. I think that's the only change we had.
Because you went through the whole debt service for the year, fiscal year.
Is there, one of the normal questions that we get at town meeting is, where's the debt schedule? Is that, I don't remember if I saw that in the,
Oh, we have it.
okay,
We gave it as part of the report to the state when they came in to do the financial review as well. Cheryl's got an electronic copy of it.
is it in the book?
We didn't put it in the book because it's long.
Okay.
It's a
Well, it goes out
It's
to
like
like
the,
40, 45 or something. So it's just,
I would just be prepared to answer that question as we go through it. What I've done in the past is, you know, it's the, what is it, Prego or Ragu, it's in there. You know, someone will ask the question, where's the debt schedule? And I want to be able to make sure that we answer that and we know,
we have it ready for Daniel.
yep, or accessible. It's got to be publicly accessible, or I would like it to be in the interest of our mission statement and everything. I just want to make sure that it's out there, especially when we know that there's an interest in it. Okay.
that's it. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions overall for treasurer collector?
Not sure, Mr. Francis.
I think the other question I have is, one of the bills, we're seeing out of the mailings for the census and the excise tax and the real estate tax. Is there a way that would be feasible to do that electronically?
I don't
know
think
you
we
have
can. I
input, know you have
think
data input,
I think we have to physically mail a bill.
by mass general law.
It could be, I mean, to send them out electronically. I don't know, to have everybody's email address, we'd have to keep that all on file. We don't have a way to do that. You know, and if it's one,
So
not
when you
the
say it would
other,
be-
Sometimes it's optional for people. Sometimes-
but we don't even have a place in Vadar to keep that information, somebody's email, phone number, nothing.
Sure,
Yeah.
if I may too, and actually the excise bills are all generated out through the RMV. They just send new files.
Right.
So the RMV is not gonna do, you know, emails or anything. And then the tax bills, everything she emails out, she gets confirmation from the billing company. She gets a statement of exactly the number of bills that were made and who they were made to. So it's kind of like she said, it's mass general law. You have to have like documentation to prove these all got mailed out to people.
Right, we have an
Emails.
affidavit of mailing
Yeah.
with the number of bills that got mailed. Yeah.
Oh, so that-
And the
that would make it
auditors,
hard to-
Yeah, and
the auditors are very,
Yeah.
that's something they review very closely.
Yeah, we have books and books of all those commitments. Everything we mail out, we have commitments to cover.
Municipal
Maybe the
government is not
census.
electronic yet.
No, it's not. That's-
I'm wondering with the census, if You know, if there could be something on the town website where a resident, individual resident, or something else.
That would be
We
the
don't keep our
clerk.
bills online.
Census would be the clerk.
No,
Yeah,
you're
the-
talking about
the
the
cen- the
annual
census would
street
be the
listing?
clerk.
The street listing, right?
We put the street list online.
Yeah, we
No, no,
don't,
no,
we
no.
don't file our
He-
bills
He
on.
says, I just want to, like, you're saying the annual, are you a veteran? How many dogs, cats you have? You're,
Right.
yeah,
That's the
so that's
clerk.
good.
That's the clerk.
Yep, that'll be the clerk.
I
So
think
that would, that, you know, we can take it as a note just to ask that question. Great. Anything else for Cheryl? Oh, CCTV's got another question. He did it earlier.
No stretching.
and someone was like, oh, they have a question.
All set.
I got Stinson over here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. All right, up next, we have accountants. Hi, Kelly.
Hey, how are you?
And accountant is paper, page 45, electronic 54.
Well, it's good to see you all.
Good to see you too. I heard you had some, an eventful flight up.
Live here, yes. So, but, you know, I'm here and good, and what can we say?
So whatever opening, or if you want to just jump right in.
The only thing is, the reason I am here is for the MMA school this week. And I will take the test again on Wednesday, and fingers, eyes, legs crossed. I can pass this time. It'll be the third time. I probably could teach the class at this point, but I don't know. I just don't test well. So we're just gonna hope for the best this time.
Awesome.
So really, that's pretty much all on my cover sheet. On my 5100, I have my my salary and my assistant, a few floating hours for her for extra time that we might need. And so we have that.
Any questions, 5100?
And we also increased the hours, it's the staff time we wanted, so Kelly is able to do every single day now, a certain period of the day, where before it was what, 2 days?
Yeah.
2 days a week,
I
yeah.
know it's a moving target, and I know that
Yeah.
we're coming to a decision point as well, but you know, as far as budget wise, you know, we'll take what we'll snap the chalk line that we have right now, understanding where we're at, and that, you know, that you've got a schedule too.
Right.
So it's a
And,
moving
we'll
target.
work through whatever, whatever we need to do. Okay, on the employee support, again, like Cheryl, I have the conferences and things there that, again, to be certified, you have to have those. Now, the memberships, you could choose not to have that in a year, but you have to have the membership to go to the school. But once you're certified, you only have to go every third year. So that potentially, if we were to work that out, that could, save money and, every other year. So that's the first part is that. The second part is, if it works out that I do continue as your accountant, it would be the travel, just the airfare, hotel and rental car. I take care of everything else, gas, food, all of that. That is split. I currently work for Hubbardston also. And so that cost is split in half when I come, unless I were just to come for Templeton or to come for Hubbardston. Any questions on that? Okay. And on my services, we still have the same price for Vadar. They've held that firm for us. The auditor also. Same with the OPEB. All of these are pretty fixed. I just worked with Paychecks and confirmed another 3-year contract with them at the exact same prices. So they're not going to go up on us for 3 more years.
I have a question on audit.
Okay.
That was a 3-year contract
It's gonna run through this
But
fiscal
this
year.
is our last year.
last year.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And that'll
so
go, that'll go back.
So
up to
we're,
bid.
we're working on that, Kelly and I,
Yeah.
so.
You can do one of two things. You can extend the contract and they have a new principal. So it's like you're with the same firm, but we would have a new person that would be
Oh, interesting, okay.
our, contact. It wouldn't be the same person for a number of years. It would be a fresh set of eyes that would come in and
Yeah.
take care of our books at the
Right.
same firm, because they have numerous people on staff.
That's usually the recommendations, is to change of principal.
Because they already have, all of the information. I mean, the first year when you change auditors, the cost is much greater because they have to establish all of their files. It's like coming in, from scratch. They have to set up all the accounts, bring in all of the files from the prior, it might be easier now with the
establish
elect,
relationships,
because they do have more interaction with each other than I think they have in the past, especially now. They've had a lot of, with the CARES and the ARPA, they've had a lot of joint meetings, all the auditors here in the state. The auditors and the state met together several times before those were rolled out to us. So that, I think they do have maybe a better working relationship than they've had in the past. Okay. And then on the office supplies, just miscellaneous, toners, those types of things. The 1099 processing, I have to buy the forms, the stamps, the envelopes, all of that. I try to get maybe 2 boxes of the envelopes pre-stamped. I probably may not do that this year because I've requested through the retirees. We've mailed them information every time their deductions changed with Worcester Regional, because they don't get stubs. All they get is a direct deposit. So they don't know, okay, my amount changed. Well, it's changed because we've changed it with them for their deductions, for their insurance, their health insurance. So I sent out a request this last time and I requested their email addresses. I want to do that electronically to the ones we have. The ones I don't have emails for, I still have to mail. But I've gotten a good group of them that has sent that back. So that will save, because we have to do that twice a year.
Okay.
So, and then shipping to Massachusetts, I've been trying, I've the couple times I brought it with my luggage, number one, I get there and it's overweight. And so it's usually an extra cost for an extra bag. So it's much cheaper for me just to send a box in the mail to do that. And that's it.
Any questions on 5,400 or accountant overall? I forget who said it last year. I don't know if it was Lynn or if it was Lori. You're like, really? No questions? You're making it easy on me.
I know, usually we're used.
Someone said that.
Yeah, we're used to being drilled.
So, well, thank you very much, Kelly.
All right,
Good to see you as
thank
all.
Oh, yes.
You got this.
Can only hope.
All right, assessor is up next.
Good afternoon.
Let's see, assessor is page 51 or 60 in the electronic. Or you can just press the next page. Yeah. Hi, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Excellent.
I don't really have to go over the first page, so if we want to just jump right into 5100.
You got it.
You'll notice this one went up a little bit this year. I'm planning on retiring before the end of the year. So my board and I have talked about it, and we increased my salary just to go with what the other financial team is doing. But we also did put an extra $5,000 in the budget just in case I have to stay on or come back to help walk them through things or train them for anything. So you'll see that was an increase. Also, my admin just went up a little bit because she did get a raise last year. So I just had to compensate for that when we level funded for this year.
I think it's smart to have some overlap.
That's what we were thinking. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
So we just kind of hoped. Adam kind of questioned if that would be enough. Hopefully it will be. And if not, we'll just kind of figure it out after. The 5110. Basic, my MMAO dues, that's not just me and my assistant, it's also my board members that went up a little bit this year. Conferences, a lot of stuff is going online that we don't get charged for, but there's a couple that we still go out to. Mileage, I only put in 75. I'm using Lori's or the inspectional services cars, so that might even not even be spent out and just turned over at the end of the year, but just in case she's out and I need to go out, we put a little bit in there for that. Notary, I'm not due to recertify till 2024, so the only thing I might need is some new books or stamps, so I just put a $50 fee on that. Purchases of services, 5,200. My Vision software, which is our whole real estate program, that went up a little bit, so with that, I put that in for that. Pretty much everything else was level funded, so that stays. What's nice is the Garden News with the tax rate classification hearing, we do not have to advertise in the Garden News anymore. We just have to put it up on our town website, up on the bulletin boards, or, 2 places. So we saved a couple $100 not having to advertise in the Garden News.
What are the 2 places that you put it up?
We put it up on the
Website?
town website, and then we also just post like out front here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that is good with the state. We just show that when we submit our tax rate recap, and they're happy with that. 5,400 is my office supplies standard. We kept it at $600. And we actually cut $100, so it's down to 5, but that's fine. And then my 5,700 postage and Worcester registry. Hopefully I won't spend as much in postage this year with being back open last year. We did do a lot of mailings out to all our veterans and exemption people. So hopefully we can cut that down, but that might have to flow into my Worcester registry and deeds and plans, because last year alone, I think I had over 40 plans filed, and for every plan filed at the Worcester registry of deeds, it's $2 a plan. So right there, that's $80. So I won't shortfall in the budget, but just want to let you know that the line items might change a little bit on that one.
Understood.
Other than that, if you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What were your impressions of the community comparison?
Good.
Yeah.
I say, you want to run for assessor? I'm
No.
looking for a woman. Okay, well, my job. No, I thought they were very good. Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Lynn, thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
And happy retirement.
Thank you.
Okay, Clerk?
Carol will not be here. Justice, could you pass that out? She did provide us, she told me she couldn't make it, so I had her draft up a memorandum for the select board and the advisory committee. So if we could move to page 67.
It's Sheila.
So she has that memorandum or note for the, and if there's any questions related to her budget, you could express them to us and we'll be sure to follow up on.
Yeah, I'm just gonna read it out loud.
Okay.
Okay, wouldn't say it's a memo, but it's basically just notes from the clerk. Notes about it. 5,100 pay increase for the clerk. Annual town meeting and election pay rate for 2023, $15 minimum wage. The state election stays 2022 minimum wage of $14.25. 5110 employee support, no change.
Stays the same. Stays the same.
Yep. 5,200 services. LHS Associates, I'm assuming that's the company that you use.
Correct.
Okay. Cost increase on agreement. Increase in poll workers' food due to paying for CERT team. Individual packaging of food for COVID prevention. I get it. So it's not like a buffet. It's a, yeah. For 5,400 supplies, cost increase in census envelopes and postage. The street list, I think that's what we were talking about earlier. Street list on this which is the last item, $900. I think that's the census you were talking about. I think that's what it's called. The annual street listing, I think is what it says at the top of the form. But it's kind of like their census to say, are you still out there? Did anything change? Tell me how many dogs you have. Any questions for the piece of paper? I didn't think so. Okay. We are only 4 minutes off. Community services, here we go. Library is up first. How are you, Jackie?
Great, how are you?
Excellent. Library is page 159 in the book and 168 in the PDF.
So I'd like to just jump to my 5100 if that's okay.
Yes.
And I don't know if Adam wants to speak to this, but I think if you could kind of disregard the wording in there about applying for a state waiver. Would you like me to speak to that, or would you?
Well, I can just be brief if I can, Mr. Chair. What we're going to do for the difference is with the waiver, it's a little more complex than we initially thought after reviewing the paperwork. So to be on the safe side, I'm just going to transfer the difference from our insurance and benefits to the library budget.
Okay.
It's like $860 off the top of my head.
Yeah, and I know your library budget is, it's protected because of the services that come along with it. So if we don't maintain a certain level, then we wind up losing something. So yeah, I can see how that would complicate things. So whatever Adam can do to fix that, 100%.
It's just not worth the risk for
I
less than
agree.
$1,000.
No, yep, I agree.
Right, so the formula that pretty much drives our budget every year is what you just referred to. The state requires libraries to increase their budget incrementally. You take the average of the past 3 years appropriation and add 2.5%. That becomes the magic number that you need to have appropriated in order to remain certified. And so that, like I said, it drives our budget. The first page is salaries. The only change there is the minimum wage increase for library assistant 2. Otherwise, I level funded everything as I was instructed to do. Any questions on that? It's basically the same as last year. 5,100. I'm really fortunate to have so many training opportunities through CW Mars that are free based on our membership. So the only thing that I find valuable that we do have to pay for is the Library Association membership. That gets us a school library journal, which is a great resource to review upcoming books and you know, decide on acquisitions. So 5,200 purchase of services. We split up the CW Mars membership so that we didn't end up increasing our request to the town by more than we needed to reach that magic number. So, and that's perfectly acceptable, an acceptable use of the state grant that we receive to pay a portion of the CW Mars membership out of that so that doesn't cause our town appropriation to increase unnecessarily. And then our post office warrants.
This would be the account that goes back to 0 for lump sum disallowed after I make that change.
And then 5,400, another requirement of the state is that we expend 19% of our total appropriation on books, material, AV materials, magazines. There's a component in there to utilize some of that sum for electronics. And advisory may have noticed, or yourselves, that in the last 2 years, we haven't reached that 19%. And that's because with different closings that we endured in the last 2 years, and as well as other libraries in the state lifted that restriction.
Okay.
They didn't require libraries to expend whatever percentage they're required to.
Okay.
Because a lot of libraries
Yeah,
are closed
right.
for so long, so, but that requirement's in effect this year, so you'll see that fully expended.
Okay.
And then office supplies, and that is a library.
Anyone have any questions? Anything additional?
Very straightforward.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Jackie, appreciate it. Veteran Services, I can see that we've got Sheila online. So this is gonna be page 138 print, 147 PDF.
Hello, Mr. Chairperson.
Hey, how are you?
Good. And yourself?
Excellent. So we pulled it up. I don't have it on the screen, but we've got your intro and otherwise, so you can either give an intro or you can jump right into your 5100.
Okay, basically the intro, the goals and that COVID related, and we're just kind of moving those forward to fiscal year 23 goals. So there really isn't a change there, nothing that we wouldn't expect.
Okay.
So the 1,000 for the personnel was just adjusted for the current pay levels that other than the pay raise.
Yep, 5100. Got it.
All right.
5110.
Yep, the next one is the employee support. So I have to pay for these what am I looking at? The membership fees. Those give me information, keep me up to date with the latest changes. And then I requested 1,700 to attend 2 conferences. Really kind of ends up being 3 conferences, but it's 2 conferences and then reimbursement for the travel. That I do.
Any questions on travel? Or no, travel and memberships? All right, Sheila, 5,200.
Hold on. The purchase of services is the Vetrospec that allows me to do VA claims right online and submit them immediately.
Awesome. Is that software been pretty good?
Oh, it's been excellent, excellent. It allows us to track as well, so people can't come in and, say that I submitted something, and if we don't have record there, I didn't submit it. So it's
Great.
it's good. Office supplies are straightforward. And then the last one, and that's my chapter 115.
Any questions? No? Advisor, you're good?
Honestly, just how does the lump sum disallow, is that okay?
That's it's been standard the past couple of years.
Last year,
It's mandatory. So, yeah, but I forget what the mechanism is, but it's mandatory. It's not like we can stop 115 benefits.
No, I know, I just was hoping that I don't understand why if we can't stop it, then why is there
If I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last year, we increased it from 80,000 to 82,500. If you look at the fiscal year 21, that got the end of the year, it was about 82,530 something, I want to say roughly. So 82.5 was what the town could afford. It was a slight increase from previous years, and that was the of where we came down to ultimately with the level funded budget.
Yeah, it's it's a demand-based line.
okay,
So
not fixed?
you could put whatever number you want there, and every veteran that is due 115 benefits is going to get benefits. Yep. So we cut it out first, and then the state reimburses us at 75%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's no issue there.
It works just like snow and ice. It
Oh,
works just like snow and ice. We don't, you have to spend it, you have to spend it.
okay.
Right. It was when we were talking about it earlier, I hesitated asking if that's the only one we could deficit spent, and I wanted to say that one, but it's not. It's like it, but it's not. And you wouldn't want to say that.
Not quite the same bucket,
Right.
but there is a mechanism for some reimbursement.
Yep.
That's outside of the normal income mechanisms.
Yeah, and in your budget book, Sheila's got some additional pages that will show expenditures. I'm not sure if there are any numbers in there about, well, actually, there are numbers. So those are benefits, but they equate to people. So someone says, I can't afford this prescription or this fuel, that translates to those dollar figures. So that's basically how she's tracking it. And then the funerals are in there as well. So like I said, it's demand based. It's, the veterans are gonna get what they need out of that line item.
Glad to hear it.
Okay, any other questions for Sheila? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much, Sheila.
Well done.
Senior services.
You are on the blow again.
Let's see, we are at page 147 print, 156 electronic.
Okay, so jumping right to 5,100.
You got it.
So the only thing I wanted to call attention to here, there's a minimum wage increase. That's pretty standard. Your board approved the addition of a assistant paid through the formula grant a few months back. That person has already started. So that's been a big help. I would personally be remiss if I didn't express my concern about the floating hours of the manager not being funded in this budget. Just last week alone, and I've heard many of my colleagues today talk about the increase in costs and fuel. And when you're talking about a population that is elderly and on a fixed income, as last year's census bore out, it's almost 18% of Templeton is over the age of 65. So many of the seniors that utilize our center are in their early 60s. So you could be looking at about a 20% of Templeton's population that may need the services at the senior center. And just last week, they had 25 visitors for services. And the majority of those, I think 23 out of the 25, were individuals who were applying and needing assistance to apply for SNAP and fuel assistance. An average fuel assistance application that Cindy would help someone with takes between 3 and 4 hours. And she is currently budgeted at 19 and a half hours a week. So I think you can understand what I'm saying. Those floating hours have been critical this year, and to see them go away next year is concerning to me. I needed to get that out there.
Justice, you're keeping the action items, right? So opportunities, if you take that note, $4,500 in the 5,100 for senior services.
An unrelated thing that.
So we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate that. Unrelated to that is a draft job description you might see attached. and this is something that kind of goes back a few years, when I was put in the role of Community Services Director, there was in fact a director at the senior center. When that person resigned, the services coordinator sort of absorbed a lot of her duties. And then when that person resigned, we said we restructured, but we really never restructured. What we did was kind of plug the services coordinator title, activities, and admin assistant, and change those all to part-time. So I know I sound like a broken record about the staffing over there, but it's, you know, a full staff of all 4 people is 78 hours per week. I don't feel that's adequate, but regardless, I think that services coordinator is a title that does not accurately reflect what Cindy Shea does over there. And it's not necessarily an internal thing. It's how her other agencies that she works with, you know, if they call and they want to talk to who's in charge at the senior center, her title doesn't really suggest that. So she, you know, this doesn't involve pay increase or anything like that. It's strictly the title to better reflect her role
Okay.
at the senior center. So
Does-
I don't know.
Does the 5,100 as submitted in the budget look, does it reflect that suggestion?
I believe I put
So
senior center.
paper copy, I'm looking in the draft job description, position title, senior center manager.
Right.
I'm gonna go back to the 5,100. I can see the breakout of hours for your position.
Yep.
And then I see it listed as senior center manager.
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
I agree.
So, but that's something your board needs to, you know,
Okay.
discuss and vote on. And
You weren't here for when we started the meeting today. I had said today's a workshop. We're not making any decisions today because we're literally opening up the hood on the budget and trying to figure out, you know, let's rewire this, let's do that. That's why Justice is keeping all of the, definitely not the only department head coming in saying, I have a serious problem here. So we've been trying to capture all of the opportunities and otherwise, but today is not meant to say,
right.
Here's the stamp, get it notarized. We're all done here. This is basically seeing what we have to do with. We could read these budget books by ourselves and it wouldn't do any good. That's why we have our budget meeting, so we can go through all those. So any kind of description that you're giving and the assessment is 100% used by both the committee, the board and the committee.
Great.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So I read through your draft job description, and under occupational risk, one thing that popped to mind in some of my training, when you're dealing with seniors and stuff, and especially in today, mental health for your leader, for Cindy and the staff should be considered, because if they don't have a way to debrief from some of the sad experiences or the trauma that they come across. I mean, she had a homeless person walk in and need services, and that was her first priority of the day. But when you're talking about that over a period of years in my training, if they don't get that help that they need to express that and work it out, I could give all the technical terms and everything, all my experience, but that is a real thing that they need to be able to have access to. Mental health talk, debriefing is what it's called, debriefing.
And in what part of
It says occupational risk, but there's a lot of sadness in dealing with the elderly. I think, you're losing people are dying and people are sick.
Okay.
They're debilitated, they have limitations, and a couple of things that I learned. One was through a healing prayer, and a man had worked in the psychiatry field for 20 years, and they would perform a quote unquote exorcism, but what it looked like was 20 years of unable to speak about all the things that he had listened to coming out when people gently laid their hands on him, and they created an atmosphere of safety where you could just let it all out, so to speak, you know, and I think that's what we're seeing more and more in the news today and in jobs. And then another course that I took, it talked about if somebody has a situation where they don't resolve it, it rattles around in their amygdala, it doesn't get processed into memory, and they can't, it triggers and it doesn't, you can't focus on anything else. So that's just my 2 cents.
Chair. One of the things I found with interfacing with the senior center is there has been an enormous turnover of personnel in the last 5-6 years. And doesn't really seem to be budgeted adequately. And one of the ideas that I discussed privately is that you have 4,000 customers of the light department. And virtually all of those 4,000 customers, myself included, take the 2% discount, or small discount, which is usually $3 a customer. And if somehow that way could be found to direct that money. I've talked about directing that money to the food pantry in the past, but I think that most people would gladly direct their discount to that. And if the majority of people could do that, that could be potentially $12,000 a month. And over the course of a year, it would be $144,000. And that would solve a lot of the problems. I don't know how to get, I don't know what the mechanics of doing that would be. I think that there would be agreement among the townspeople that I'm taking the discount anyway, why not redirect it? And I think that you've been underfunded, so we could solve that problem. Chronically underfunded.
Okay.
I'm just throwing that out.
What? I did.
Okay, so employee support, these 3 items, the cell phones are completely reimbursed by MART. The COA membership dues are supplemented by the formula grant, and then the MCOA conference, which will hopefully take place next fall.
Verizon's a cost share, Colin.
What was that?
That the senior center has cost share with our account.
No, it's separate. It's a government account, but it's separate, and it,
Yeah, that was set up separately
Right.
years ago.
right. And it is, yeah, it's funded through.
Wow. I'm sorry, I'm
That's
just
all right.
like, I'm just doing the math in my head.
Yeah, they're the phones for the van drivers.
Yeah, it's possible that we could try to,
Yeah,
Get
we
that
brought it
together,
up
but we have
earlier.
to-
We understood the structure earlier. If this is apart from that, then yeah, I would love to be able to try and take that, reduce that risk. If we're going to use the right language, I love how Kim started with that, because that's, what it is. We're going to reduce that liability. So if we could take an action item
yeah,
to take a look.
I can work with Jackie to look at that. I mean, they might actually be able to get more updated phones as well.
Right, they're not new phones. Yeah, right.
Great.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Purchase of services, we were able to get a discount on my senior center software. This is the 2nd year in a row. They've discounted it $400, so it's $1,000. And then the yoga and various program instructors, I'm in agreement with the lump sum disallowed. I think that, they've been really creative over there with trying to get some of the actual seniors that visit to put programs on. And that's been, will help to offset that.
And I know, my wife and daughter have to go for a certain type of yoga, have to go down to Hudson. So I know service provider, it's also very difficult as well. This is one of the, in terms of services, this is another one of those, we talked about it at least twice, trying to find providers, partner up with somebody, a different, whether it's donation or otherwise. I would love to just find a way to fund it. But also I at the same time, I'd like to try and figure out a way to solicit for, like, hey, could you donate, X amount of hours at the senior center? So we get donations, in kind, rather than just donations for money or otherwise.
We could think about utilizing. our
Yeah, I
newsletter.
don't mean to, I'm definitely not here giving you work to do.
Right,
It's just overall collectively, that's partly on the list to say, how can we interact with some of the service providers out there to say, it's for a senior center. We're not trying to get, free. We're not trying to get free yoga. We're trying to get it free yoga for a purpose.
I think
Okay.
we can work on that. And then the,
Could I expand just a tiny, so anytime I see one of the things that I do, and I'm not going to speak for the rest of the board or the advisory committee, when I see the lump sum disallowed,
Yeah.
you got to separate it out to say, we're just going to, bite our lip and burn through it. We're going to try and seize an opportunity someplace to, can we push that risk somewhere else? For that one, it's not that much, but the service, like you were saying, the service becomes so important to the people who go to, especially if you're marketing it well. And I think in our community, we've been doing a pretty good job marketing. I've been absent from Facebook for a couple of years now, but just from word of mouth, we get the word out there. I'm sorry, you can continue.
okay, supplies, 5,400. Most of these things are either funded through the formula grant or reimbursed through MART. MART will reimburse for the fuel for the cell phones and for portions of the dispatcher and the director, the manager's salaries. So
That was a question that we were talking about, the MART reimbursement for the dispatcher and how it gets back to the senior center budget if it comes to us, right, in the general fund.
What happens is we expense it out through our budget, and then it comes in as a reimbursement to the town. And this happened, I think, years ago where we didn't get the MART reimbursement that we were expecting. So that's why we started putting it into the general fund, and it comes back that way.
But does it go back to the senior center for the dispatchers? The question, how does it get back to the senior center for the
Well,
dispatcher?
it goes because we're budgeted it here, and then it comes back to the general fund.
It's like it's being refunded.
Pardon me?
It's like it's being refunded to the general fund because it's paid out.
Right, but it does, but if the senior center, if the dispatcher is doing the work, wouldn't it help pay her hourly wage if she got the money instead of it going into the general fund?
We already,
That was the question for the council on
they
aging.
did raise that question, yeah.
but that we pay it out. Kelly, if you want to answer it.
Right, so so the general fund pays for the salary for the person.
Yeah.
So basically, they're reimbursing the money that we have already paid out.
Okay,
So that money then goes into the general fund and then flows through your free cash. So the money, we can't pay them their salary and then take the money that MART gives us to pay extra to that person.
I get it. It's just,
Okay.
it's a flow where it comes in, but
Correct.
that we're paying the wage, so
Yes.
it gets back to her that way.
A few years ago, the way the accounting was done, it wasn't done appropriately. And the DOR had us close down the revolving fund for the MART.
Mhm.
Now that things are being funded properly and the accounting is done properly, that's something maybe we could revisit with the DOR as far as maybe they would allow us to reset up the revolving fund. So we wouldn't have to put it through the general fund. It would be in the revolving fund. But that's something, like I said, we would have to go to the DOR and request their approval to be able to reset that up. But I think it's been now a couple of years, they've seen that the accounting is back on track, that they might allow that. So maybe,
Sorry, would that be a revolving fund for the senior center's use or for the town's use?
it would be for the MART program itself. So you wouldn't have to put the heating, the gas, or the cell phones, or their salary would be automatically expended through that revolving fund
Okay.
instead of, in the general
I
fund
get
and
it.
all of that.
Okay.
But there's still administrative control. It's not like it
Right.
becomes like a, its own rock band out there. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
Which should kind of happen before. It was kind of on its own.
Yeah, interesting.
But I think maybe in doing that, if that were
Yeah.
done, it would, then this budget would more accurately reflect what the true senior center budget is.
Correct.
So
That would be correct.
But we would still need to get state approval on that.
Understood.
Are you gonna, will you be able to answer?
I will be able to answer that at the next COA meeting. Yes, I think I've got my head around it. Thank you.
Okay.
And then the last page is just the volunteer appreciation, which is funded through the formula grant also. So
Understood.
the mark statistics on the back, the rides are increasing all the time, so.
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
In reading through this budget document and listening to you today, I'm really appalled that people, are coming in and you don't have, people are coming in for aid and you don't have the people to respond to that. It's appalling. It really is appalling.
It's a great staff and they're standing on their heads. I mean,
It's appalling. And I really think that, we do have the money and that you really ought to try to find $75,000 and fund these people. They need that money.
Well, 75, what's the figure you just said?
$75,000. I think in reading through, they really need that amount of money for people. You have a need and you have people, and there's a huge gap. It's more than any other part of the budget. And it's appalling.
Okay. I hear you. So 75,000 represents, are you just throwing that number out? Or I'm looking at senior services overall at 96,000. Request 126. So where does
It's always your people. It's always the people, and you don't have enough money for the people. And you really need to increase, the amount of money you spend on the people by $75,000.
You're talking about the staff?
I'm talking about the staff, yes.
Well, so from, I do want to unpack that. I do, because I'm sincere when I give the action items or otherwise, when we're gonna look at the $4,500 in floating hours. I understand how to surgically go in and help you with that. What I don't understand is if you offer $75,000, I don't have a basis for where you're going with that. Look, follow me. So when I look at, I'm gonna go to her for 5,100. I heard what you said about they need money. And if I'm going to answer what you're saying for services, I'm going to take a look at what we're paying them and the number of manpower. So if I'm going to unpack your number of $75,000, I can see what the delta is between what town administrator went with. I can see your 126,000 request, and, following the budget guidance. What can I do with what kind of recommendation can we make with the 5,100 to increase your confidence in the senior center? If I was to add personnel, that's a lot upfront cost. If I'm going to increase hours, which I already, I think we addressed that $4,500 to take a look at that to say, what is the low hanging fruit that we can, again, we've done it with all the departments. We're going to go through that. But I want to be able to understand, this is a workshop, to be able to go through there I would like to add capability, and I don't know if I'm appalled because I want to put my own ownership on it as well, sticking around for 3 years.
Maybe that was strong language, but what
No,
I
that's
see,
fine,
but what
but
I,
you
but what
gotta
I
have that.
see, what I see is, I see a job load that is increasing perhaps exponentially. And I don't see the funding for people to match that. You have more and more elderly people every year. And it's not going to go away.
Mhm.
And I think that you see that every day. And, you really need to fund that gap. And I think of looking for the budget, the gap, between services needed and the people to supply it is bigger than any other part of the budget.
So about is a $30,000 difference between both. Go ahead, Ken.
Just point of clarification here. So I ran these numbers through. First off, on the assumptions for number of weeks per hour, we're using 52.4. Why are we using 52.4, not 52?
To cover the full fiscal year.
Because it's actual cash money that has to go for those extra, like 3 days or 2 days that we have in the budget, the way the municipalities.
So last year we used 52.6, and that's to cover the additional, right?
Right,
So,
for 3 days. And this year it's 2 days.
okay, so that makes sense there. On this form though, looking at FY23 request and the administrator recommended, when we look at the bottom totals, particularly lines administrative assistant and then administrative assistant minimum wage increase. So we're excluding the administrative assistant line item at the 7,400 because we have to bring them up to the wage increase of the 7,722. But you also have 0 for the Templeton Senior Center assistant wage increase, which should be a 7,722. Right?
That's coming directly out of the formula grant.
That is. So
The temporary senior center, that was an added position in fiscal year 22 because we understood the staffing.
That covers that.
There's a grant that comes directly out of the
So
grant out of the
there's
general.
4 head count there.
There's 4 positions.
Individuals, yeah.
Well, actually 5 if you include Jackie.
So, I see community service director, that's 1, senior center manager, that's 2, activities coordinator, that's 3. I see the admin assistant and the Templeton Senior Center assistant, right?
That's a temporary senior center assistant because it's coming out of a grant. So we
So
have,
we're double counting. I mean, at least what I'm looking at here from the salaries on the right-hand side, we're double counting the administrative assistant at the 1460, but we're talking about a wage increase of the $15. So we shouldn't be including the 1460 wage. Am I correct on that?
I think I know what you mean.
And then if we look at, so you're double counting that salary there.
no. Jackie, if you could
I
explain
think
how you,
she's paid the one rate for the period of time prior to the increase in minimum wage. So it's like half the year she's paid the
26.
current minimum wage and the other half the new minimum wage.
Okay,
So it's 26 and
Yeah, okay.
26.4 weeks.
The first one I didn't understand, the second one I did.
As we're playing the fiscal year versus the calendar year when the federal rates change.
Exactly, yeah.
okay. So that should be, that's half their salary before the rate and then half of it after. Okay.
Right.
And then on the FY 2023 request, that's going to be paid for, you said offset, and that's why that's 0 on the
Yes.
administrator. Okay, recommended.
it's funded, but it's not funded through the general fund.
So
And
on
that, yeah,
the
right.
lump sum disallowed or the 110 difference to the 8250, then we should be excluding those 2 numbers from that to find the difference between what's funded and what's not funded. Right, so if we backed out from that 110,586 down below,
Correct.
backed out the 7225 and the 7722 for the senior center assistant,
Mhm.
that should give us what's truly disallowed or truly the difference between the request and what's recommended.
And if I can say, we're very grateful for the select board's decision to fund that, to allow that formula grant position, but to Noel's point, that's grant money that could be used elsewhere. And we're using it for an employee because that was our only option.
It was a one-time.
I don't know, I don't know how, I can't recall how the board phrased it as far as whether that needs to be approved every year.
I don't know.
But it, the formula grant is pretty steady, but again, it sort of kind of almost goes against your use of one-time funds for
Funds, right.
recurring expenses, so.
Yeah.
Well, it's a temporary position though.
I think there's going to be additional discussions. I like the stuff that we've got on the list so far, so we can kind of go back and see if we can't rewire things. But as far as, what Noel's sentiment is, and I think it is, it's not, I don't think it's bad to say what you said.
Right.
If you got to say it, you got to say it. And then that promotes action to say, what can we do to do that? I know Adam's been trying to figure out, there's going to be some things that we're all going to high five each other on. And then there's going to be some things that we're going to say, why, how is this going to help? That kind of, that sort of thing. I want to be able to provide service, but I also want to be able to take care of the people that are providing it. So why don't we get offline whether it's our public meetings or even private discussions to figure out how do you, if 75 grand is the gold standard, and I'm sorry that I pressed you on it like that, but if that's the gold standard of what we can, do to that, how do you get to that number? What's the difference between the 30,000 that you didn't get and the 75,000 that your quick assessment to say this will fix you, this will add capability, and that's what we're trying to do, but we're not going to solve it here.
Right.
Well, I think you got to chip away at it. And I think that rather than level funding this portion of the budget, that you really need to try to chip away at more and more each year until you reach that.
Yeah. I think just the dichotomy between, so when we say level funded, when we made that decision, ARPA, they didn't even have the ARPA guidance finished yet. The ground shifted underneath our feet. When we had our auditor, talking about how well we did during COVID, we ran with that. We ran with that statement. We knew it. We knew deep down that our actions during that, prepping and going through it, we were doing the right thing. So now that we're through this and we made that decision, we've got to kind of get through this at the same time as carrying on service. There are benefits to doing it this way. And many in town, many on the board had advocated for this. So we have to be able to figure out how to follow our own guidance, to see this thing through until town meeting votes for it, and then use that like, all right, what will next year be? I'm sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
Well, I think it's just, how you said in the beginning, there has to be a funding source, and we've got to come up with a revenue source to fund that. When you only can raise the 2.5% and you have such other, extreme costs that we have to pay, we don't have a choice. That's where we run into, that's where we've got to put our heads together and work on, we know this is a problem. We know that we need to get this funded, but we also have to have a revenue source to be able to pay that. So, how you were talking about the discounts or all of that, that's where we've got to come up with the start to fix the problem, is the revenue source that you've got to have to take care of it. So I think that, you really hit the nail on the head before we ever got to this point of we have to come up with revenue to cover it.
Or,
Yeah.
We've used ICA, help me out with the acronym.
ICA.
Intergovernmental agreement, am I thinking of, not host community agreement?
IMA.
IMA, sorry,
Right.
ICA. So an IMA with another community that might have a more robust, someone else that might already be tapping into another revenue source or something, and then we wind up getting service. It's just another way to be able to reach out to another community to say, what are you doing? Another senior center that doesn't seem to have a problem with resources or otherwise. Just another thought to be able to go out there.
If I can. too.
I'm a big fan of them. I wish that we had more of them. Mr. Roselli agreed. He said the more that you're partnering with area, other municipalities, you are going to be looked on more favorably by credit and financial institutions. Go ahead, Adam.
I also wanted to say too, these positions we have in here are 19 and a half hours. If we were to fund additional hours, then these
Yeah.
positions become benefit eligible. And when they become benefit eligible, and I'll go into the insurance and benefits later with Kelly, you're going to be increasing the insurance and benefits budget as well as the senior center budget. So
Yeah, we don't wanna
it's,
do that.
so when you're talking, when somebody becomes benefit eligible with a family plan, we're talking of upwards of almost $30,000. So
Like I said, we're not gonna solve it right now, but
I just want to be-
come up with some ideas on directions we'd like to go. What we're finding right now is the low hanging fruit. Some of the things that we can basically put on a list and say, we did it the same way last year. We came out of a very successful, albeit long budget day, and we made some really good, we found some good opportunities the last time. You have something else?
No,
Okay. Someone did. I did. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This falls under the category, we're addressing an elephant in the room. We don't have a solution for it just yet, and that's okay. Now we know where it is, it's on our due out list. Much the same as I've been following the ESSERs, the ARPAs, and we had the review by our external auditors, and we can put everything into lost revenue minus these 4 categories. But then a little over a week ago, Adam and I were on a presentation done by the Office of the Inspector General, where they specifically said paying for that audit with the use of ARPA funds was a definite disapproved use. This is why at our last select board meeting, we overruled and overturned our vote. We're going to pay for it out of general funds. It's keeping us out of trouble with the Department of the Treasury. So we were doing everything right. The rule kept changing. There was an interim final rule and a replacement interim final rule, and then we got to a final rule, and now the state even dug a little deeper and scratched the surface. We went, oh, this is what we're doing right here today, the same thing. So this is actually a very healthy and a good conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Recreation and culture.
Hello.
Recreation and culture is page 165 paper, 174 electronic.
You want me to do my mission statement and my speech of how I foresee, how I see our.
If you prepared a speech, I'm all ears. We're all ears. You don't have to read if your speech was verbatim what your
No,
sheet
it's
says,
just an
no.
overall.
Sure.
So on our first page, our FY23 goals is to bring back the playground for the summer and to take on and learn the new responsibilities for when we become park and recs. We'd like to start implementing adult programs as well. What I would like to see for the rec department is it for it to be fantastic. I would like, once one program ends, another one starts. I want our parks to be used. I want our playgrounds to be used. I want kids outside. I want them off their phones. I want them off their tablets. You know, a lot of kids have bad lives and they hide out in sports. I don't want to say hide out, but like that's their outlet. That's what they have to look forward to. That's my goal. That's what I would like for, I just want the kids to be happy. I want the kids to be outside. I want them to just grow that way. And they learn teamwork, they learn compromise, you know, follow directions, this, that, and the other thing. I would also like to be able to have sponsors, scholarships for, you know, some people in town can't afford the 120 cap. You know, if they could just kind of come over to the side and be like, hey, I need some help. I would like us to be able to help them. We have kids that have been playing rec since they learned to swim. And then now they coach our teams, they ref our teams, you know, they're part of that. At the end of their senior year, I would like to be able, as the rec department, to be like, it's not a lot, but thank you for doing everything that you did. And, kind of this hand washes that one and it just builds a community, I feel like. All right, with that being said. Yes.
One of the, when you said scholarship, whether it's stipend, scholarship, whatever, but basically paying like an entrance fee or otherwise. I don't know if we have a list or, who could collect. I don't know, maybe Jackie might have insight on it. Like what are the charitable institutions that we have, not only in town, but that cover our area, and to be able to communicate with them. I know that there are plenty, we had the Lions in here the other day. That might be a source for that. If we can't figure out how to shave a penny at the municipal level, maybe we can, again, build an alliance, a coalition of charitable organizations to be able to cover that.
I would like to increase our sponsorship as well. We are currently at 150. I'd like to ask for possibly a little bit more. So then that would go to our, our shirts, our equipment, our stipends for our coordinators and such, and then put a little over to here to start building up. I don't want to say a bank, but.
To do that, you'll need to be online.
I would like to start building up a little, like I said, even if it's $50 to buy a book, just something to say thank you and to increase our awareness and help build up the town of Templeton. That is mine. All right, so if we're gonna go to.
You wait.
Yeah, I'll wait.
You
I'll wait.
you
But I
almost
just
already
have a
had a question.
suggestion.
Okay.
When we get them.
Okay.
Okay.
For my 5100, if you look, you'll see that the only thing that we wrote down what we have been paying people, what we will be paying people for their stipends. And if you notice that we're not asking for anything except for our community services director, our swim director, and the 2 assistants for the swim director.
Can you say that again?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're only asking for money for the community services director,
Okay.
the swim director, and the 2 swimming assistants. Swimming is important because it's a life skill. Children need to learn how to swim, and I feel like that program has always been free, and we would like it to maintain to be free.
Yeah. I thought you. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying that clear. So that's all I have on that page. If you go to the next page, to the 5110, you'll see that we have asked for $250 for the Massachusetts Recreation and Park Association and $450 for Red Cross certification for the swim instructor.
They would be a water safety instructor.
Yes.
Is a big difference.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not, just the training is invaluable for that.
So we would like to ask for that. And then the 5400, again, all we're asking for is for the swim program.
Yeah, and if you wanted to touch base upon how you're becoming more of a self-sustaining, utilizing the community
Yes.
services revolving account.
So we've been using our own monies to sustain our programs. We've been offering more choices at the snack shack. I'm playing around with that. For soccer, we did breakfast sandwiches in the morning, and then we started with the hot dogs and the hamburgers, and people seem to like that. And basketball, I'd like to get healthier choices, but kids like those Sour Patch Kids and those gummy bears and all that. So we've been building up funds throughout like the snack shacks and such like that. And like I said, I would also like to start possibly increasing our sponsorship.
Yep.
So that's why if you see zeros there, you'll see an asterisk that the funds are coming out of the community services revolving account. So those
Okay.
programs will still be offered. It's just that they're sustained through the fees or whatever other services that they provide to raise funds into the community services revolving account, which was one of the recommendations from the study when we had Westfield State come in. So I believe you'll be actually adding a couple programs,
We would like to in the fall add,
swimming and
we're gonna add the swimming, and we're trying to get a field hockey coordinator so we can start field hockey skills and drills. So that way, when we're ready to get up to the middle school, we can do that. If we can develop a field hockey program, that would be great, but I'm going to start with skills and drills.
Okay.
So I talked to Holly,
Mhm.
part of the reason I didn't get you your report right away. And did you vote swimming in? Because,
Yes,
so now you know.
And it's funded in the budget
Yes.
because that one is not fee based. So we couldn't use the revolving
right.
for that.
So apart from what I'm gonna send her, she's gotta come to you now, or how?
Yep, and then I'll get the letter ready for Templeton Fish to request
So
the
I'll
property use.
follow up with that report, but she already knows. The main thing we needed to establish was if it was funded and ready to go.
Fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'll get together with you on that.
Kelly?
One of the suggestions I would have is we have the special article every year, the $4,000 for the scholarship.
Yeah.
Potentially, maybe we should split that and do 2,000 for the scholarships and then maybe 2,000 for recreation scholarships. You know, because that, I mean, they're both, extreme important, things for the community. So, I think that might be something to look at, because that is something we regularly fund. And, the recreation is an important part of our community. Not only, you do have seniors, but we've got the kids in the community that we need to, maybe by helping them, that will help them because as the time goes here, we're going to need those young people that are here to be on committees and to do things for the municipality. And, maybe by helping them might give them a little more, want to give back to the community.
Yeah.
Just as a thought.
I'd love, and, those scholarships, you know more than anybody, they've been rolling. They
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
issued anything.
Right.
But this is the year that we got all of the volunteers on.
Mhm.
So that scholarship committee is active. I would definitely, put the question to them to say, is what you have adequate? What do you think about diversifying it, just from an idea perspective? But I would want to get their take too.
Right.
But again, good ideas. We're never gonna be able to do these things.
One last suggestion.
Yes.
I live on a pond and we skate on it every year, so I was thinking of what happened with the skating rink. So that window to skate outside is usually just a few weeks in January, February, and then maybe if you're lucky into March. So I'm thinking next year, if we do accept it again, it just doesn't get filled. We give people a time frame and it doesn't get filled till after January, because that's when the temperature is consistently
Stay low.
cold for the ice. So that was just my observation this year, knowing how what we do on the pond.
Thank you. Jess.
Thank you.
Pat wants to come up, Mr. Chair.
Hi, how are you?
I'm just gonna rep from the Cultural Council, and I want to start with maybe just a little pitch.
Sure.
We're state organized, although town appointed council. The state requires us to have at least 5 members, but we don't get the state funding.
Right.
Right now, we have 7. There's one person who's terming out fairly soon. So if you could spread the word, if anybody you can think of would like to help serve on this council, that basically gives away state money. I mean, it's kind of a fun thing to do.
How often do you meet?
We usually have maybe 6 meetings a year, which cluster around the time that the applications come in the fall for grants. And then we have to make decisions on the grants. And really that's the meeting schedule.
You can keep me on your short list.
We do try to attend a lot of the events that we provide grants for.
Mhm.
A, to be more visible and to try to solicit some more members
Fun to give out money.
and to do things. But the meeting wise, it's a pretty easy carry. So,
Great.
so most of the funding for the council is from the state. We have asked for some funding from the town. We've been grateful to get some in the last few years. A couple years ago, we couldn't use it because of COVID. We had planned a concert.
Yep.
And didn't get to use it. But I noticed in the recreation department, there was a survey that was done of things that the town would like to see and stuff. Number one seemed to be outdoor concerts. And it's something that our cultural council is very aware of. We used to have community concerts Sunday afternoons on Common.
Yep.
People remember that we don't have a community band here anymore. So last year we did have two. One was funded with the town funds that you had given us for the Arts and Crafts Festival weekend. That didn't happen, but we did have a concert with that money.
Yep.
And then another concert that we funded with the state grant money. For the coming year, we'd like to do 3. Again, one using the town funds. Apparently the Arts and Crafts Festival is being revived. We hear it's being revived. So we'd like to do a concert in conjunction with that. We already have one planned for June 5th, the 60s concert on the Common. And then we hope to do one again later in the season. So people seem to like them. The second one we had last year in September, I think we had about 120 people on the Common for that concert. So that's where most of the funding we're asking for.
Okay.
And a little bit for some advertising, posters, signs.
Yep.
Office supplies.
Right. Those to me are easy to fund opportunities. Adam hears me say that, or they're, like easy to fund. What are you talking about? You tell me to do it, I gotta go find the money. But they're high impact, like you're saying, people like them. So whatever we can do for it.
And they're funded in the 5,400. Whatever the request that Linda that sent it in? Lisa, excuse me.
We only have $600 for a concert for a decent band. Okay.
Great, thank you so much. Get them whatever they can out of them. Yeah.
They got whatever
Whatever she asks. Go ahead, Kelly.
Does the historical commission, I mean, I see that they do the request. Are they aware that they even have this money? Because so far since I've been here, the 8 years, they've never used it.
I don't know.
They
Is
are
John
aware.
Brooks on that?
Yeah, John is, and I talked to
Okay.
John.
Okay.
They are aware. They just meet very infrequently.
Oh,
and
okay.
they're-
All right.
If they have to do a mailing
Yeah.
about a certain property.
We need to talk to
Oh,
them
okay, all right. 'Cause
about
I
those
just-
2 parcels of
They
land
don't
too, so we can
expend
get
it.
a memorandum of,
Why do we put that there?
I think they
you
just
guys
been
can
touched,
use it.
but if they don't need to.
But
I
we
don't
need
know.
something in place because we always go through that. If anyone gets on that section of land that the historical commission has kind of purview over, we wind up getting complaints like, oh, that's not your land to use. So we
Near
just
the
need to
fire
get them.
department there.
Huh?
Near the
Yeah,
fire
correct.
department, yeah.
And there's another one on Hubbardston Road as well. I mean, it's woods. But we just need to get a memorandum of agreement on record. I talked to Luann about it, but yeah, maybe we just talk with John about that. I don't remember who else is on it. I just know that John was.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think Steve's next.
Steve.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I feel like I just saw some of you this morning. So I think as virtually all of you know, but just as a reminder, we're an enterprise fund. And so our unused money goes back into retained earnings, and we use our revenues for the operating budget. And we use the retained earnings for our capital budget in the 5,700 area. So that's where we buy all the technology. And we treat that kind of like a savings account, and I'll get to that and how we budget it, but things go year to year until we can spend them. And that's so we don't have to come back and go to a special town meeting.
I have to find you in the budget book. You know,
Page 238.
238.
Section 5. Well, that's the personnel page.
So I can start at 5,100.
238.
Your first page is 234.
247 electronic.
If you're ready in the 5,100.
Ready.
And we're completely, almost not completely, but very much front loaded for our operational and personnel. Most stations like us do 80% of their operating budget for personnel. So you need people to run the technology and hopefully good people. So in this, we're asking this year to take our media producer position at 17 an hour and make that position full-time program coordinator who would help schedule Channel 8, which requires several hours of work a week, and also maintain the content on the YouTube channel and work with Jackie on community services and coordinating all of the efforts that we do on behalf of Cultural Council and Recreation and so forth, so we can coordinate that better and get the word out.
And your
And
budget sustain. Can your enterprise fund is correct?
yes,
Can you sustain that?
yes,
Okay.
Congratulations.
thank you. So,
And, when's the next renegotiation? Is that next year?
no, it's due the 2027.
2027. So you got a little bit longer.
Yeah,
Okay.
usually start it with letters that go back and forth 3 years ahead of time, but it
Okay.
doesn't pick up until about the year before.
Okay.
So anyways, we'd like to do that, and also the station tech manager line that we're sort of holding for a promotion from within, because I really think you have to be a good program coordinator and know what is running on the TV station and on YouTube and be able to schedule that to be the station manager. We have an opportunity, I think, to possibly hire someone who can help us with marketing and social media. And I'd like to kind of put a slash in there and work with Adam and Jackie on just having the flexibility to do that. And as our staff grows in its abilities and their training on other things, we're kind of handling the station manager job ourselves. So we're building our own little station manager robot out of all the tasks we do.
Can facilities, for all the things that he's talking about right now, any issues facility wise?
Well, Steve's been working out of here as of late, but obviously, whenever we get Monty Tech moving forward, I mean, with the Scout Hall project, I mean, that's the
understand, yeah.
ideal.
Yep.
But in the time being, he's been over here with his staff quite a bit.
Okay.
And a thought on the program coordinator position too, to what Terry was talking about this morning, with seeking sponsors for lights and that. I mean, we could help with that. And, we're always looking for sponsors too. For instance, we have an agreement with the Festival and the Common people who are putting on the Arts and Crafts Fair that, we can try to upsell their vendors on video sponsorships. And we have to work like that because we have to recruit that, all of that stuff. So I made a note this morning to talk to you about that. So we can see how we can work together. And,
Okay.
recreation too and everything else. So I think that position plus possibly a marketing person could really provide a great 1-2 punch and allow me to go out and really to sell what we're doing to other groups. And we're also starting a regional website. We need content for that. So if we can have 3 or 4 people adding content with that, that's a great help. So that's 5,100. And in 5110 is largely the same, although we'd like to sponsor 10 memberships for Toastmasters, which can help all people improve their communication skills. And it's not just for people who are afraid of public speaking, but if you want to be more persuasive or want to be more concise, it's a great way to do it. And we would like to offer that for all employees and volunteers.
I highlight.
Is Adam a Toastmaster? He wants.
Not yet.
You want to be.
I highlighted that. I'm like, is that for everybody, really?
I love it. Great idea.
It is.
Yeah, and if we, if we can shave an hour off of meetings a month, it pays for itself. So, and if it's successful, we'll do it.
They're doing better at that, huh? They've been doing better at that, shorter agendas.
Yes, it has. So that's very helpful. 5,200. I think is largely the same. We've got some costs in here that are baked in also for Scout Hall. For instance, the phone and internet service is doubled up. So if we get into Scout Hall, it will cover that. And the same with 5,400. I think there's no changes there. The heating oil, we usually don't even pay past that. So that's
the.
Yeah, right.
Going back to your 5,200 services.
Yes.
Adobe is the only, you gotta have so many more licenses that you pay for. Is Adobe Creative Cloud the only one that you pay for? Or do you buy them outright?
We bought the license for Adobe Creative Cloud, but it's $1,000 a year.
Yeah. I just, with all the tech stuff that you have, I thought that you would have had more.
Some of them are put into the capital with, for instance, the warranties and the live streaming service, since
Understood.
it's technology. And, we want the operational budget to be able to support the personnel as much as possible too.
All right, thanks.
So thank you for asking
Yeah,
that.
5,400.
5,400, the same, heating oil, hopefully. That was meant for 2 buildings. Let's put it that way. Hopefully it will cover more than one. If we get their office supplies, we don't usually use it. That used to be for DVDs and sleeves, which we don't use anymore. The best office supply we could have right now is like a drawer to put in office supplies. So we have all this stuff in the closet. We got a paper clip, but we don't know where to put it. But we don't really use many of those types of office supplies. The indirects I leave up to Adam. And here we are at the 5,700, the capital account, and this comes from the retained earnings. So some of these are on this fiscal year as well. For instance, the town hall camera system, which I talked about earlier, and I feel that the market for pro AV stuff for hybrid meetings is still very unsettled. And I would not recommend buying right now unless we had to. And right now, the meeting owl is serving us well. We have another backup coming in maybe today for that. So my feeling is it should wait until at least the end of this year. And then if we do that, that's a studio grade system. We're going to want to use it for more than just meetings. So, whether we want to turn this room into more of a studio, I don't know, but I think it's still, in my mind, the jury is still out of whether we continue with something like this or go back to the cameras and put Zoom into that.
Yeah.
And the technology is, some of that is still not quite proven. So it's kind of like buying the first model year of a car. Sometimes you're better off waiting and let them get the recalls done. Scout Hall Furnishings, we always said that we would match some of the money for CPC, for Scout Hall, for our portions, and we've had 10,000 in there for 2 years in a row, and then I made it 20 last year, and I figured, well, we'll just put in for 30 in case we need it. Equipment upgrades, we do this every year, and that's, we're always buying things like tripods and cameras and computers, and we've already spent about 10,000 of that, but this year, that's, we probably won't spend more than 30,000 this year out of this capital account, because we just don't have the opportunity, I think, to do the camera systems or Scout Hall furnishing. I'm talking about FY22 right now. And then the website build out, it could be 5,000 to 10,000 more for an ad platform. We may have a partner for that to help us sponsor that. And then once we roll it out, if businesses want to do e-commerce, that's more money. So I just put that in there in case we need to spend it. And here's some of your other subscription services, Mike, that you were asking about. The warranty for the system that's in the closet, and another system we have, we're actually not paying that right now. The Casta server, that's the TV server, and the cloud streaming service is, we're running on it right now. So it's more than worth its money. And at one time, we'll get a 3-camera mobile switching system.
What do you think, like if this is like your studio forward, what do you think about, like Cam is over there on a old drafting table. I mean, do you think is it within your budget, or is it an authorized expenditure to buy a new conference table for in here?
Well, maybe
Something to look at. Could be an opportunity. I would, it just occurred to me as we were coming in here, it's old, we use it for everything. If we had a bigger modular system, rather than, again, Cameron's drafting table over there, He likes it. We'll keep it just for you. Put a sign on it. I don't know if that's something you could look at, or if it's possible. I think that would help out.
Might get a really high tech one.
Right? Right, seriously, it might make your life a little bit easier. Any questions for Steve on his 5,700 or anything else?
Yes.
Yep, go ahead.
I noticed in the budget request, you have two Chamber of Commerce memberships. We just talked about that.
I would buy, we haven't done it yet, because COVID and we haven't really had the opportunity, but I would buy memberships for the Greater Gardner Chamber of Commerce and the North Central Mass in Pittsburgh.
And why would you do that? What benefits?
Mainly the regional website we're building out is meant for the entire Massachusetts region. And that is to increase our sponsor base, which we have to do if we're going to raise enough money to not rely on the cable funds, which are 90% of our revenues right now. And those are, by conventional wisdom, supposed to go away. So my job has been to find a way for TCTV to survive long-term. Can't do it based on the amount of business in Templeton to get enough sponsors. So where you go regional, you go to a website. So that's a big reason why I would go there. And I would feel justified in throwing in North Quabbin as well for a membership. And I just have to get the membership to get out there and start hobnobbing.
Go ahead.
It's just important to know that on that, in your budgeting process, in that intergovernmental, probably have to add about 30,000 if you're gonna add a full-time employee, because their benefits and that adds retirement and all of that. So just want you to keep that in the back of your mind.
That's what I thought thanks for verbalizing it. When he says stuff like that, I can actually hear Adam shifting in his seat. So just, good things to remember.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? CCTV. Christine.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. All right, folks, that wraps up community services. Thanks, Jackie, for you and your team. Any necessity for a break? You want to take a 5-minute recess? I see one. Yeah, okay, I would make a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor of a 5-minute recess, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're in 5-minute recess. Not recess. Is that what I meant?
Recess.
On the playground.
I'm not. It's- Look at that. Looks like a mess
No,
up
but
there.
it-
I just like, I can just stand.
He just won't stop. These weekends. manages it.
You guys are gone.
We back?
Yeah.
I see. I think I see this. Yep, we're up. All right, folks, we are back. This is the final stretch. We're in that last block of 2:15 to 3 o'clock. We've got executive, which is select board, IT, insurance and benefits, capital, and then just a quick wrap up. So we're going to start off with the select board, and that is paper page 30 and PDF page 39.
In our narrative, does anybody have anything that they want to discuss, where our goals are? The organizational chart has been updated. So I'll go right into, and then the select board work plan goals. Okay, in the fifth, let me just, Mr. Chair, jump into the 5100 account.
Sure.
Okay, for the longest time, our staff in our office fell, raises would come up at the fall, when we would do the merit equity for these non-union folks, if you will. And last year we changed that and put that pay increase within the budget. So what I'm looking at essentially here is a reorganization of our department. Currently, we have myself, the town administrator, an executive assistant, and then an administrative intern. The administrative intern title is more, it kind of implies a temporary position where a more adequate position would be an administrative assistant, and then to move my executive assistant to an assistant town administrator. I mean, basically the pay is about a $9,000 difference. I'm more concerned about getting the positions approved by the board. I'd be willing to hold off on I would make the adjustment of the 9K off the budget and put into other areas. I could deal with that come the fall, but in the time being, I'm looking at doing a reorganization where I'll need approval. You see the draft job descriptions you have in front of you for both positions. I mean,
Those are in the packet as well.
those are in the packet. And I just feel that would be a more better way to run our office and to get more accomplished in a more effective, efficient way.
I noticed you add an extra column in class/grade and steps. So that's the future.
Well, I would need the board to approve my reorganization. I could make the adjustment where I could put them when they get their raises or reviews to be in the fall. It just last fiscal year, I changed it from the fall to the annual. So I guess it's a preference of what the board wants me to do.
But we haven't set a policy yet for the class grade and step, right? That's coming, that's forthcoming when I forget what's his name? Sorry.
Don Jacobs.
Don Jacobs, yeah, when Mr. Jacobs finishes, he's writing that up, right, for the select.
The grade
board?
levels, well, right now, the executive assistant falls at the grade level 5. So I would put this as a grade level 5.
Okay,
And then the administrative assistant, I would speak with our
So-
Mr. Jacobs about the grade level that should fall under.
so what has to come first, the policy or the,
Well, I would want the board to sign off on the draft descriptions. I mean, I believe I have the authority to do it myself without doing a pay raise, but I would obviously want board, because ultimately, it's your office as well, as a board.
When do you plan to do that?
I'm hoping to do it within the budget, and then I could do the adjustments come the fall.
So you guys wrote, did you write this?
Our office
Yes.
came up with it.
But I mean, when you look at the standard language of assistant town administrator and administrative assistant, you're looking at standardized language. They didn't start from scratch. What do you want to do? You know?
Well, and the way we did it too is when I hired the administrative intern, I had the money in the budget as clerk's interns, I believe it was listed. So I had to create the position under the term intern. So I posted administrative intern, but I feel like the reorganization makes more sense for the administrative intern to be an administrative assistant. In the same way with the executive assistant should be an assistant town administrator. From my perspective, when I came into the office.
Mr. Chair, I know this isn't my realm of scope, this is definitely a select board decision, but in longevity of the plan, right? Like let's forward think this out 3 years, right? And is the structure that we want for Templeton, or even say 5, 10 years from now, right? You guys are all on to bigger and better places. Having a town administrator, an assistant town administrator, and then an administrative assistant. Is that kind of what you foresee as Templeton moving forward and operating, or does this organization fit the names and the roles for the people that you have now?
I see it being more of a long-term plan moving forward. I mean, I enjoy working with Templeton. I've been here now for almost a few years, but let's say something were to happen, Adam gets hit by a bus, then
Wins the
you-
lottery.
wins the lottery.
That's much better.
Then you would at least have somebody in a role that could kind of step up in the time being where the office isn't left
Vacant.
vacant.
Going back to interim sort of situation and whatnot.
Similar to what happened not too long ago where in Phillipston, I mean, once the chief administrative officer was out there, I don't even think they have anybody in that role.
Taking it over.
Yeah.
So,
Good for them.
Yeah.
so that's more how I was looking at this from my standpoint, and to make things run smoother.
You had me all the way up into what you just said. I mean, the 3 people we're talking about are sitting here and you guys are doing your job. Your title doesn't work. That's what I just didn't understand the last thing you said. Why would you make it? How would this change make it move smoother?
Long term is what he was saying.
Long term.
If there was transition, it would make it smoother in the transitionary period. So, for example, if he were to win the lottery, we don't have to assign an interim person to lead the town. It
I
would
got
be-
it. Okay,
it's a-
I understand
Which makes
now.
it
Thank you.
smoother in that sort of aspect, right? You
Yeah.
have somebody to fill the role.
Yeah, because what I see in looking at different municipalities, it's when somebody, whatever, whether it be political, whatever the reason is, they don't have an administrator. That's when there's no consistency and you don't have somebody. So it's almost like, well, who's in charge? And then things go unnoticed, and then it leads to other extenuating problems.
Which we definitely felt in the past. With interim positions, for sure.
So it's a
All years
plan.
after those.
It's a
plan-
longer term
A
plan.
plan in place to keep things running.
And that was one of the reports from the state when they came in, that we need to have more of
Structure.
not some, well, structure, but
Consistent.
consistency within positions. So when somebody retires, somebody could come up and take that role, or somebody leaves, somebody could come up and at least, even if they don't take on the position, at least they could get the work done within the office.
Minimizes gaps.
Minimizes gaps, and then we have deadlines we have to reach. We have other requirements, and if you don't have somebody with some sort of knowledge, you can miss deadlines and it creates other problems.
So say something happened, like you did win the lottery, it would be interim until we voted to hire, to change.
Well, yeah, they would just assume the role in the absence of the administrator.
In those months that it takes to get someone in place.
Interview and stuff, yeah,
But the select board would have to delegate or assign the town administrator.
yeah.
This falls in line with the content and the report, the last report we received from the consultant, Mr. Jacobs. By doing our wage and compensation study, which was never done before, first and foremost, define all the positions. How do we fill them? And then it's still up to us, how do we pay the people filling the position? But you can't get to B and C without A being in place.
Do you foresee using any student interns? You shut that down, or?
I did, because those are more temporary roles, and I would rather have somebody that's in the position that knows, okay, I got to do XYZ today, as opposed to, oh, we have to sit down. Maybe they could do this, but I'm not sure. I find it to be with the people I have in the roles now, where things get done and they know what they have to do,
More productive.
Okay.
essentially.
Right, so as a matter of perspective, like, you know, we're not. You're looking at it from a perspective of, we need work done, student interns as a method. I had a different perspective. I thought that, you know, like that was something that we were offering our community. So when kids graduated or otherwise, like Margaret Hughes' daughter was one, right? Yeah, like she came in here, got experience, like we weren't trying to get work out of her daughter. It was more of an experience thing.
But
But it's a cost. I mean, it's a cost if we're, you know, trying to squeeze something out of a rock. Then okay.
and just the amount of procurement we're working with. I had to get an extension for our green communities because there's so much that we have to do with just all Bob's. We have to go out to bid soon again for the concrete, bituminous concrete bid package, the crack sealing for the roads. Then the senior center roof's gonna have to go out to bid. There's gonna be a lot of important projects that have to get done, and you really want people to, you know, so if I assign this to the assistant town administrator to do, even though I'm the purchasing officer, I could just review the document, say, okay, this looks good, let's put it out to bid. Or, you know, my administrative assistant. So it creates where we're not getting a bottleneck of procurement stuff that, like mini splits that were on hold for what, 2018 to now. The list goes on. I'm just trying to catch up with everything. And, you know, even when Carter was here, it was just really both of us working on it. And
Yeah. Speaking of Carter, when is his agreement extended to? You happen to recall?
it's October, November, right, Holly?
It's October, I'm trying to remember.
Okay.
And his hours went down a bit.
Yeah, and that's my next question. What else was he working on? I know the rack thing, Tim will tell you, they've been doing it for 18 months. So it's like, you know, we really got to reevaluate, you know. Now he's been doing it long enough. Carter's been able to guide it, but at this point, I think we could get in the driver's seat. Like what Carter is able to do, but that whole consulting thing was so he could provide the continuity. And here we are, almost about 2 years later. I think we could probably wean ourselves off of that. Maybe in a discussion with Carter to say what else was out there that you fear for, that you really think you need to stay around.
And right now he's working on a couple projects with us. That's why you noticed in the budget book, his hours have went down, so.
Okay. And before the executive assistant overtime hours were broken out separately, is there a change for that?
Well, that's why I'm gonna make an adjustment here.
Okay, this was your first contact with this plan.
This is my first
Okay.
contact, but
Okay.
after I reviewed it further and we're level funded, and I'll make the appropriate adjustments of the 9K and move it to other areas.
Okay. How's our reaction so far? Favorable? Well, you threw this in front of us. You probably wanted some kind of reaction from us. We didn't throw anything at you.
As long as you say the draft descriptions are good, and I mean, it gives me an idea of where you want me to go with the office. I mean, you're in the office in and out as well, so.
I think you can, I think you could proceed.
Okay. That's really it. That's really all I got on the personnel page.
Okay.
Okay, 5110.
Page
36.
Oh, wait, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
What is that, you guys getting stipends now, $500?
You know, that was not in
How did you
place.
get that in there? How did you?
I
slide that in
frankly
there?
don't know. I actually don't remember, but I do remember people on town meeting floor arguing for it to say all of that work, you know, this is it's such a small amount of money.
Good for you. No,
Yeah.
I'm
We don't have
I'm
to take
upset and I'm jealous. and I hate it. But no, it's definitely, I mean, it's not, it does still doesn't cover gas, fuel, I mean, travel, your time. I mean, staying here on a Saturday, $500 is nothing, but
Yeah.
I remember that was a big thing.
I actually did, every once in a while, I feel so inclined to try and work out, like certain figures, like, you know, when someone comes in, you know, we have certain, as you remember, certain members of the community that will come in and occupy our time. I try to figure out like what that cost was. I figured out, I think it was when you break out the hours that a select board member normally will work within a year, I think it came out to be like 23 cents an hour.
Yeah.
Totally worth it.
Sounds about right. And that's getting paid and not, none of the other expenses that come with it. Right.
What's the 401k?
And we'll add another twist for your benefit. Not everybody accepts the stipend.
True. Yep.
Decline it.
Oh, you should take
That's a
it,
good
donate
point.
it
I'm
to
glad
charity.
you said that.
Yep.
Yep.
So on the so on the 5110, cut this back as well for employee support. Necessary trainings I have to go through for my renewal. On my, it's going to be coming out of the fiscal year 22 budget for my and my Massachusetts Certified Public Purchasing designation. So I have to go renew every 3 years for all my classes I got to take. Inspector General's office. So that includes training there. I think you also see this, I have the training for 23. I'll send the assistant town administrator to that. And that's the average expenditures that go along with our employee and volunteer recognition and promotions. Any questions? Okay. Purchase of services, this is the same amount as last fiscal year, $69,000. Anybody have any questions on this?
I wonder what do other communities pay for legal support?
It all depends on.
I know it's a, it's a subject that we talk about frequently, because you need it. You really do need it to be able to be sufficient in the decision-making process that goes through our office. I wonder.
Well, I could say when I came from, talking about Chicopee, they had staff.
Right.
They have the city solicitor and people that are staff that did it. So it was a little bit different.
Yeah.
But they also have a lot more.
Larger community.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking over a $200 million budget.
And I think to your point, other communities really depend on how good the TA or the town manager is, or the city manager. Because if they're not good, you run into a lot more legal problems down the road, right? So it's really up to how much legal obligation, and legal risk there is involved, right?
Right. I totally understand.
And it also falls into a calculation, who you contract with. KP Law, for instance, is the legal representation to the Massachusetts Municipal Association. 48 or 49 communities also subscribe to them. at the tune of $500+ an hour.
Oh,
And when you look at our, approximately 200 an hour for Harrington,
roughly.
we're getting a bargain price, but we're getting a quality product.
I think, yeah, we signed Harrington, which I can't remember what the other guy's name was, but yeah, Miari's. But I remember that was a good sign. He's really good. I'm glad to hear that he's still around.
Yep, and that number is verifiable. I'm not just pulling it out of the air, but I mean, just for a comparison, right off the top. So I mean, could you imagine if we go 150% more of what we're seeing here?
Yeah.
Holy cow, like you said, you want to see it lower, but
Well, and that's.
It could always be
We're
worse.
not actually spending 75.
No,
That's
but we
our
have a
cap.
projection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there active litigation other than the tax taking? Is there any other
We
active-
do have some that are ongoing. I would say, and Kelly, you could correct me if I'm wrong on this, but none of them that can materially financially impact the town.
No, they're just, other than the expense of the year after year with the attorney fees. They're just, it's the legal system and sometimes they just drag out. And they drag out, that's for sure.
So we have a couple ongoing, but they're not enough to hurt the town financially.
How much of that 75K are you spending on that outstanding litigation? Is it-
One just came, so we haven't received any bills. We have a notice to appear. I don't have a number on that. The other one, what Holly, about 200 a month.
200-300, yeah.
over time, all right.
That's where the average.
2018 or 2018.
Oh, that's been going on for how many years, Kelly? It was before me.
It's at least 5.
And it's like 28,000 for attorney fees
Mhm.
over that period of time.
Oh, yeah, over that period of time. Yeah, when it was.
And then, and that's like now when it's kind of, but in the beginning, it was, lots of money.
Yeah.
That's the thing, when it first happens and you've got, all the stuff, you have higher expense, but now it's just kind of the trying to do whatever they're doing. I don't know. That's not my thing, but I just know that
Seems like there's no end in sight for something.
oh, I know.
So when those cases go away, is they go, I mean, what?
Another one pops up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a long time trend to wash.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been pretty fortunate though. I mean, we have a couple, but
Yeah.
nothing major.
It's today's world, Sue happy.
Everybody's upset about something in the
Yeah.
town, and that's our backstop for how to help them.
Anything else on that one? Office supplies. I cut this down as much as I could without Holly.
Throwing something at you.
Even down from last year, 2,500.
We're gonna cut it down as much as we can.
To bring back.
I'm good with that.
5,600, I'm looking at, I'll probably move this back up to 50,000. Because I got 3 collective bargaining agreements that are coming due at the end of this current fiscal year.
Which unions?
The police dispatchers, and the highway and sewer union, they're one.
What, you're negotiating for 20 head count?
Close to it,
About right.
close to it. So. Any questions on that one? And don't forget, this also includes the non-union folks as well. The 5,700 account. It's for our voters guides for the annual and the fall, the annual report. And people love that annual report.
I started putting pictures in.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I think that's why people love it. Pictures.
I think we should print 5 and have them at each office and then put them electronically. Because we have boxes of
Mhm.
them that never, nothing ever happens to them.
Oh,
And we use them to level tables or something. you know, it's-
Don't say that on TV.
I mean, sorry, but it's just, you know,
Can you, I mean, I don't know,
Lump
maybe we go
sum
to, can
disallowed,
you go to like
right
an
there.
ordering system?
You know.
Like you order
That might-
yearbooks.
that might
We
be
need
a
to
good
change the
idea.
bylaws, what we need to do, because I think it says
Hmm.
everyone's supposed to get one.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
But not everyone takes.
Hardly anyone takes them.
no,
But we have to go,
Sign- Could we have a sign up for them?
well, just like an ordering thing.
Well, if we bring
Yeah.
them, they're at town meeting.
Oh, they're there for.
They're there to
Yeah.
take.
have-
Because the bylaw states we will have them prepared and available so many days in advance.
Yeah.
so we have to follow the bylaw.
I don't know, maybe
Change that.
constructive use afterwards, you know, a burn barrel, and we all have like hot dogs or something.
Bonfire, fundraiser, bonfire.
Okay, I think that's pretty much all I got for the select board. Any questions of me?
No.
So I'll let Holly take the IT.
Page 66.
Holly?
Yep, 66. So Comcast, that's for 7 of the buildings. Basically, everyone except for police and fire, they're on the fiber. Microsoft is for our email and productivity package. And there's 2 different amounts there. One is for the full license that you can download, Outlook and the full software package. And one is for the online only, which is majorly the part-time firefighters have those. Website fee, which by the time we get to pay the bill, it'll probably go up a couple hundred. It seems to go up a couple hundred every year, but I baked in the 200 extra for that to plan on that. VoIP phone and fax lines for Town Hall, Senior Center, Library, and DPW. That's our TPX lines. Landline phones are for mostly police, fire, and DPW, the ones that really need to have a reliable phone line. Long distance is that crazy bill that we get once a month with a $2 charge for long distance. Cell phones, that's for the most that we have, building inspector, Board of Health, emergency management, VEPS, and DPW is also on there.
What's the long distance thing?
It's some additional long distance fee that they charge us. Our regular Verizon lines are Centrex, which is a really inexpensive phone line. I think that's why they have a separate long distance charge. So we get these like $2 a month.
Faxes was a big thing before, but like, I think the library, different places still offer actual faxes. And there's a cost for that, and that's, I think, a couple of them.
Yeah, it's that and long distance. And so it's
Yeah.
$25 more than covers it for the whole year. It's just a couple.
We just send extra, it's not worth the 50.
We've been
whatever
paying
cents.
a $25 check and just getting it credited until, so we don't pay the bill every.
Has anyone ever asked about it?
Yeah, Kelly
Oh,
actually
yeah, I
called.
cleaned it all up. We were paying for Phillipston's people.
Oh,
We had all kinds of numbers on there that weren't ours. So I went through all of them and narrowed it down. and
Oh, okay.
It
Yeah.
went from, $6 to
Good work.
$2. Hey, every dollar counts.
Right. Hey, Verizon, I don't think that juice is worth the squeeze. I'm sorry, Holly, go on.
That's okay. The domain name is for our .gov. And that's annual. Copiers and printers, that's for our new Toshiba contract. As managed services. Printer and copier paper, which that might go up, but I'm gonna start being the paper miser probably. And 1,300 for PC, 1,300 for each PC upgrade. 7, so we're trying to make sure we buy 6 or 7 new every year. So we're keeping up with it and not having to buy all at once.
You're managing that.
Yes. PDF conversion to workable docs. I use that software so much and
I can imagine.
yeah.
Wiring is just an additional fee we have in there in case we need something extra done with our PCs. Just, you know, something new installed, something fixed. Entree tech additional services, same thing. If we need to get a new computer installed and it costs a little more, or something's fixed, it's not included. It's sort of like a little insurance policy to make sure we have a little extra if we need it. And managed services for technology is $1,300 a month. I did manage to cut that down a little bit. Well, Adam did.
But I also want to say, we did a lot of work on going out and getting quotes, bids, for a lot of those items you see within there. So that's why we were able to cut back on the IT budget. Anything on IT?
I don't have anything right now. I might go back and look at some of this stuff.
Okay.
I just have a question for Holly, may or may not be able to answer it. The VoIP phone lines.
Mhm.
What is our average monthly out of commission or downtime?
It's pretty rare that we're down.
I'm good on IT. Everyone else good?
Okay, insurance and benefits. Kelly's here. She does a lot of the health insurance. Then gets me the numbers over here. And that's on page 180.
Yeah, I looked up the position of actuarial. I missed my call, 150,000 to 250,000.
You make a ton of money, but you couldn't pay me to do that job. No.
And on this one, our Worcester Regional Retirement went up roughly 100,000. Health insurance, that's why you see the lump sum disallowed at the bottom there, because we put it in expecting 3.7% increase, and we were fortunate where we got 0% and we had a reduction on the dental.
0% increase on health insurance.
But yeah, and last year we actually ended up getting, or excuse me, this fiscal year we're in now, we actually ended up getting a reduction of negative 7.78%, right, with the premium holiday.
So, yeah.
So we had a reduction in the current fiscal year we're in. It actually worked out perfect.
Wow.
That consultant is really paying off.
So, and then we got the renewal in at 0% of reduction in dental.
I know.
We're also going out for competitive proposals for the property insurance, the workers' comp and the like. We're expecting those proposals at the end of March. So we expect those prices to hold firm as well. But this one, you'll see an increase, obviously, because of the retirement. Those are fixed costs that there's nothing we could do about them. It's to prepare for the unfunded liability for retirement costs, which grow each year.
Kelly, did you do an intergov transaction from the light, the water, sewer for all this stuff?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so it
it's
goes
on the
well.
revenue side, yeah.
Okay.
You know, and like, I mean, so this is based on current employment. So like now, you know, if Steve adds a full-time person that gets family insurance and all of that, that's gonna take 30,000 out of that budget. So, you know, it's like, I know that there's always a big contingency of, you know, why do we have extra money in this account at the end of the year? But it only takes a couple of changes. You know, you've got somebody that doesn't have insurance, somebody comes on that needs family coverage or whatever. So we have to be prepared for that. So, you know, that's why usually we end up with extra money in there. And then like last year, we had the month where they gave us the free insurance, you know, so anyway.
Adam, in 2036, I'm looking at page 182, I know we talked about this passing sometimes. In 2036, I see our problem up until 2036, right? You know, it's the stuff that keeps you up at night. You know what I mean? In 2036, does it just all go away? Like Thanos kind of finger snap?
Go back to the 2008
We'll
levels.
go back to just administrative, you know, that type of cost, because all of the stuff will be, you know, put in whatever account they need
Yeah.
it to be in for, you know, like our OPEB, you know, the whatever 6-something million, if we were to reach that, you know, then we would have all that money to be able to use for other purposes.
Yeah. So it's just the pain that we're gonna endure
Until
in our
they're fully
countdown to
funded.
2036.
But we've been pretty fortunate on the health insurance front.
And like she said, oh,
This will change though. This changes with market conditions. So that's why actuarials get paid a lot of money, is because when they run this, it's based off asset growth projections on a portfolio.
right then. And they do it every 2 years. So like you said, they do the actuarial with Worcester Regional every 2 years. So I can't remember, I think was this our off year? So every other year, we will get a bigger increase because of, you said, the market values and whatever they've done in actual for that year.
To put it, if there was a market crash, it would spike up because you're technically taking, it's like a 401k portfolio, except that you're supposed to hit a certain threshold because you're promising pension or, you know, whatever it may be. And they're gonna get that money. So if the market were to half itself, right, dramatic half, you have to now backfill that. Or if the other side, the positive side would be, if, you know, it just went wild and we got all these great returns on it, then it would underfund.
Yeah.
And that's what.
Does, you know, like over 30,000 volume help us? If you're saying there's a crash, you're in trouble, but you know, if there's steady increase, I mean, over the past couple of days, I know that it's been fluctuating. They had 400-point increases based on some of these energy discussions that are going on, sustaining or keeping us over 30,000 volume wise on Dow Jones.
I mean, the Dow Jones, I mean, I don't want to get into the stock in equity.
Yeah, I don't
conversation,
either.
but
I just
it would be
wondered.
Focus on the S&P 500 index.
Okay.
Because the S&P 500 index is most often tied to a lot of these investment portfolios. Right, if you were to buy one from BlackRock or Fidelity, most of the time it's tied to an S&P 500. So my assumption is whoever's in here is most likely tying to that.
And it's when they do it. So like, you know, it doesn't matter, we may have a great swing here, that's not gonna matter. It's when they're finished with the actuarial and they plug it in what it is right then. That's what we have for that 2-year period. So.
My assumption would be that it will, even if there was a market downturn, you know, 6 months from now, yes, on paper, it's gonna look bad. If they were to release a study 9 months after that, they're gonna incorporate it, it's gonna show higher, but over the long run, it should even out. I mean, that's what you hope for.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. So this is one of the for sure biggest items of the budget. Here we are at the end of the day talking about it. And my question is this, is this pain between 2022 today and 2036? Can you stretch that out by 3 or 4 years, or is that gotta pay X number of dollars every single year in an increasing amount? Because it seems like if you could smooth that out just a little bit, you know, there's money that you could grab.
Well, and that's the challenge is we have to pay the X amount of dollars, but if we pay it July 1, we get a discount.
You get a discount, yeah.
But outside of that, Worcester Regional, will assess us and we get a notice of the assessment. We have to pay that.
So we have no say over the amount of the yearly assessment, or we
No.
can't ask for a year off, or
No.
we can't stretch it.
No, they send us a bill and we have to pay it. The only discount they give us is if we pay it all in July, which, you know, a lot of towns don't have the cash flow to do that. We're fortunate we can, because it's like a $12,000 usually, you know, discount, but it's not. Yeah, we all dread that meeting in January, you know, how much more is it gonna cost us this year, so.
And those,
So there's nothing, right, the town or the townspeople have no recourse to change that.
No.
Well, we signed pretty much a promissory notice, and when we say we're gonna give them post-employment benefits,
Yeah.
this is an obligation that we have legally, so this is done so that towns and municipalities can't renege on that obligation, so Worcester Regional manages it for us. And they just say, this is what you're, to meet your funded liability, this is what you have to give us. You think this is bad, you should talk about the Massachusetts pension plan, Massachusetts makes their own rules and they're underfunded, but we don't have that option.
But yeah, I always tried getting the number, Kelly too, and Cheryl, so we expect it, we know it goes up, we just have to wait till the number's released to see how it's gonna be broken up, not only for the town, but all our enterprise funds too. And then our enterprise funds, we budget it, but then they reimburse us for their cost of it.
And that's another added cost, but we don't pay it, the Worcester Regional pays it, and we have to get it, is to get that breakdown. Because they do it as a town, but then we need the breakdown to tell us, what's light, what's water, what's sewer, so we know what to bill them. So I'm sure they're paying that, so eventually we're paying basically for that service. Because it filters down to us.
I'm just very surprised that nothing can be negotiated. It is what it is.
You could show up to their annual meeting and complain, I suppose, but.
I'm sure that's a real hoot.
But yeah, that's all I got.
Right, so Adam brief, page 180, which is the insurance benefits. Does anyone have any questions of the supplemental documentations? I don't think we need to go through them, but if anyone had, something stuck out to you, I wanted to revisit that graph, the 2036 graph. If not, we can move to capital.
Everybody all set? Capital is on 194.
194 copy, 203 on the electronic.
So the total capital budget 618,500. So many of you remember we had some items that we addressed with the loader in the River's Edge Conservation Area, which will be completed in April or May, excuse me, with the deadline that needs to get done. So we'll have both those completed. That was roughly $200,000. And then we have here between, we could go through to go to 196 in your budget book. You could see the breakout, the various different capital items.
All right, so we do have people watching. Just to explain the document that Adam's going through right now from the budget book, you've got the department and what the item is on your left-hand axis, and along the top is how it is going to be, it potentially will be funded. Because not everything comes out of the free cash, which is the largest chunk, but basically like the capital items that TCTV has, it's going to come out of their enterprise, their retained earnings. Police department frequently will have grant funded items. And this document basically is the matrix by which you can figure out who is funding which of the capital items that are going forward to town meeting.
And this doesn't include like what will be in the ARPA spending plan my recommendation. Obviously, Main Street Bridge, we have to address that. We'll have some other recommendations there. So this is just what will be in front of the annual town meeting.
Yep. So total taxpayer appropriation, I think, is 618,500. Sound right?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, between the retained earnings and the.
Yep. So that's page 195. So that's what people, if they're following along with their budget book during town meeting, that's where they should be looking. So if they had any questions.
And also to note too, that that's not in here. You might remember, we're gonna amend the capital from last year. We had the shared vehicle, but Light gave us the vehicle we have now that we're using for the shared vehicle. So we're gonna take that 25,000 and apply 10,000 of that to mid-size pickup for the DPW director. And then 15,000 for the improvements at Gilman White Building on top of the 10,000 here. So at least that'll give us some opportunities to really address that building that over at Gilman White. At least knock out, whether it be the plumbing or knock out the electricals. We'll start making some traction there.
And we usually have a pretty good process with, everybody sitting here. Cam, I'm not sure if you were on yet when we were briefed on when the capital finished. But they go through the whole process, so there shouldn't be any surprises, only updates at this point.
And the big ticket item will be obviously the replacement of the senior center roof, which is going to be $140,000 out of the CapEx. That's going to require 2/3 vote at town meeting.
That gonna be the end of it? Remember, we're siding at one point, now it's the roof, that is it?
No, there's a kitchen.
Oh, there's a kitchen.
We're almost there.
And the basement has never
What
been
is it,
touched.
12 years?
Yeah, that was supposed to be a
There's
dining
no
hall.
Alamo in the basement. There's no basement in Alamo. There's a basement?
Oh, it's huge. That was
The
gonna be a
Alamo.
dining
I did
hall.
not know that.
That's
Yeah,
what
Bob
was
was-
gonna be the dining hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
must have
the-
missed
oh,
that part of the tour.
And the elevator. When you first go in the door, there's
Oh,
that
yeah.
giant hole.
Yep.
That was where the elevator was supposed to be, to take people down to the dining hall. That was all the original plan.
Oh, of course I know there's a basement. The food pantry.
Yeah.
I don't know why wasn't thinking that. Oh, sorry. That was my gaff for the meeting. Typically good for one gaff per meeting.
It's late. At least you got one.
Yep.
Anything else on the capital? And I want to thank Tim for his work as the chair of the Capital Improvements Committee. They spent a lot of time and they gave us a list too that we submitted off to Senator Goby's office on some other capital that we're going to be putting in through the state ARPA as well. So hopefully, whether it be they fund the tanker at the fire department or they fund one of Bob's 6-wheelers, we put the list in. So you can only hope. You see it attached here. I believe it's under my letters on page 225.
It was truly a consorted team effort.
It was. You don't see the tanker on this because that was a separate email I followed up with the senator. Thank you.
Didn't she encourage us to get it in as soon as possible?
She did. And she was successful on getting us that utility truck, which we got the paperwork for. We're getting that off right now. Over there with the state ARPA undesignated amount that we got through already. So we can only hope that we could get more. She was successful getting us to 225 when Mr. Terenzini was still here. So we have a good partner at the state level.
What's the next milestone for ARPA in terms of our spend plan for that? I know we had a community engagement effort.
We will have our meeting, the second meeting in April. We're putting together the spending plan, right? Our recommended spending plan. And the select board will have a decision to make on that. Because we have to have the commitment. Please get that ready.
As well as the first of the many required reports.
And Kelly's been doing a great job taking care of not only because all this federal money with CARES and ARPA, reconciling the accounts for the CARES. So just quite a few reports and a lot of requirements. So we're fortunate where we have an accountant that has been on taking care of that.
All right, Adam, that wraps up executive. Any further questions on the executive? Any select board, IT, insurance, or capital? All right, folks, that is the end of the budget book. So just as a wrap up and wrap up the meeting, did the advisory have any unresolved? What am I trying to say? It's definitely 3:30, 3:40.
Additional comments?
Yeah, or additional due out. Did you have any due outs? That's what I was looking for. Anything that you want to make sure was on the record and re-looking. I captured the floating hours for the senior center manager, but I also took a note to look at the overall budget to see what could be done to increase service. Justice, were you taking more notes, or were you truly capturing the things where I was like, we want that, we want that?
Yeah, I took some general listed them by topic, like, discussion on the senior center manager and the floating hours,
Okay.
discussion on the
Do you have them bulletized or like numbers? Are you able to read them back?
between me and I mean,
Do me a favor, I would love to review them right now, but if you don't have it in that format, could you consolidate them and make sure that we have that as a record?
He'll send it on Monday.
Okay.
We
Yeah, I
already
can
talked
send
about
that
it.
on Monday.
Sounds good.
So that way, like when we did for example, like last
Yeah.
fiscal year, you did the budget due outs.
Yes, sir.
And then we followed up on some this fiscal year that from last fiscal year that, so there's some that we could address right away. And then there's some that we address going forward into the next fiscal year.
Yeah.
Depending on
And I would,
what we could do.
so speaking of from the select board's perspective, just as a running, and you probably already have this, but as a running agenda item up until town meeting, or up until we put it, we basically sign the warrant as an agenda item, budget book discussion, however you want to characterize it, so that we can capture anything that we need to.
Because remember,
The missing members might actually, whether they're watching or they'll catch up watching. They may have something they'd like to say based on the action items or do outs, whatever we call them. So we can review that and, I definitely recommend advisory do the same thing so we can have parallel discussions. And if we need to, we can jointly meet again to say, hey, this is what we came up with to answer that question. This is what we came up with. All right, let's come up, we can then alter the budget book like we did last year. And so to some of the members who aren't on there anymore, this process does work. And we do make changes to the budget. Yeah. So that's reviewing action items. We'll see that. I would, unless we want to go around the room for any last views, I would say process-wise, from an after-action review perspective, I still think this process works very well. I'm at work, I'm friends with an air select board member, and she says to me, "You're meeting on Saturday? That's crappy." And I said, because we were meeting in a string of nights, so it really actually gets everybody in the room even though it's on a Saturday. But I think the process is effective. Improvement wise, I don't know.
I can say for the department heads, from the talk, is they so appreciate having both of you here at the same time and being able to present it, so that they're not having, because they used to have to go to one meeting and then another meeting. And, they appreciate having this as the option to be able to, voice and questions and all of that can get it done in one time.
Right. Yeah, I agree, John. So having said that, when we go around the room, Ken, you want to start? If you have nothing.
I mean, I've talked a lot today, but I would say, I honestly don't envy what you guys have in front of you. I think with the budget as is currently, as a level funded budget. Personally, I think as an advisory committee member, not talking for the entire advisory committee, I would have not opted for a level budget. And I think it's very clear with what we see in the budget right now is that we're making a lot of cuts, mainly due to salary increases that we're seeing, right? Because minimum wage has gone up to 15. We see some of those increases there. But generally speaking, costs go up by 3%, but we saw this year, talking about inflation, we saw what, 9% numbers in inflation. So year over year comparison, that's exactly what that is. When we say inflation is 9%, that means we look back at last year and take a basket of goods and say, well, the average cost is up 9%. I think it's a bold decision to go with a flat budget because these are the things that you're going to run into. And so one of the prime examples there, we talked about crack sealing today. We talked about the toolings, a lot of the early stuff at DPW, right? I think it's one of the budgets, one of the departments that people care the most about in Templeton, because I mean, yeah, they care about police and fire, but the number one thing people will complain about is the roads, right? When they're bad, they complain. When they're good, they don't care. They'll never mention it. So these are the items that I think we're missing out on, not just in the DPW, but community services, parks and recs, mainly because we're keeping a flat budget year over year. And I know that COVID has been impactful for a lot of people, but again, these are the tough decisions that I don't envy you guys have to look at and make those decisions for the town. So that's really all I have to say.
Thanks. I think what I hope was accomplished, at least from the advisory board standpoint, is that we were able to spotlight areas in the budget. Maybe need a little bit of underlying care. And I think certainly the DPW budget with portions dependent on petrochemicals, which are going up, and the senior services, two areas. I'll leave it at that. I think it's a long process.
Okay. Just advisory committee overall, like we're gonna go back to our corners, we're gonna, talk through some things and, hopefully we can figure out some of these tough areas. And, not just point our finger down the table and say, hey, Adam, fix this, but, have, hey, what if you did this? What if you did that? Because that's exactly what he did last year. He's like, if you're telling me to do this, I'll figure it out. And here's the effect over here. So we'll go to our corners and do that. But thank you.
We're moving in the right direction.
Stuff's getting better. Stuff's getting better all the time.
Tough as it
Love that
is.
one.
And to, reiterate what Mr. Bennett said in a past meeting, we're living within our means.
Thanks, sir. Tim?
It's good to be in this forum because last year, my first year in this process, we were on a Zoom meeting that went till 5:30 or a little bit later. So we're on the mark very nicely. To Mr. Fort's point, yeah, the level funded budget decision is a tough call. Last year, even though it was recommended and suggested by the state to level fund, we opted for the service funded budget. But then looking at the bleak picture and things that were looming, looking down the pike, the level funded was the better option. We have had some windfalls and some other funds have been unlocked and made available, but it's not the God all save all, but it was the right decision. It's the tough decision and we made it and we're going to get through it. But there were many people were arguing that on the town meeting floor last May. It's like, why aren't we doing that?
Well, I don't envy it at
This
all.
is exactly why we didn't do it.
What's the smart decision and what's the moral decision, right?
Right.
And that's why I was in that position once and I never again will I be in that position.
Thanks, Tim.
Adam.
Well, it's nice to be back in person and, I know we all have our viewpoints and everything, but it's not easy. I remember working with this and sending the emails out to department heads. Well, I need to find $91,000 or I need to find $36,000. I do got to say, we do have a good team here. They were helpful. They actually, I was pleasantly surprised that some of the deep lump sum disallowed you see in your budget book, they actually said to me that they can make it work, which is good to know because I know that they're gonna take the time to work within their budgets. And I gotta say, from the instruction the select board gave me to working with our team, I think we did a pretty good job. And this is the first time where, at least that I know of, where the town's gonna have excess levy capacity, because we're not going to the proposition 2.5 cap. If anything, I could see us go, we're at 1.75% right now. And with the news of Monty Tech not coming down lower than what we projected, we could go as low as only 1% of our, up to our proposition 2.5 cap, which is great news for taxpayers in town. But at the same time, it's a budget where with market volatility, we have to be cognizant of that, but at the same time, provide a budget where we can, where our residents in town can be proud of, as well as our department heads can make work. And that's a delicate balance that had to be figured out. And I'm just thankful I got a good team here, from the elected officials to the appointed officials to the town employees. We've come a long way, and they helped me get to a level funded budget, and it wasn't easy. So I want to thank everybody as part of this process. That's all I got. Holly or Justice?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think you did an excellent job on this budget. I know how hard you worked on it. I'm sure Kelly got plenty of phone calls from you and helped. And thank you very much, Justice, for being there for Adam. Only because you were here was I able to go have my surgery and recovery. And not leave him in the lurch, so. All I have to say.
No, I think having never experienced a budget process before, I think that this went fairly smoothly. I don't, happy to help out wherever I can, especially with you being out for your surgery and knowing that that was going to be an interesting transition, but it went smooth. There were no hiccups on that. But yeah, I, saw the hard work that Adam put in and all the discussions that we had to go back and forth about, and seeing all of those emails back and forth about, we need to find 90,000 more in the budget. We need to find 30,000 more in the budget. But overall, I think the town administrator did a good job, and I think that this is a good proposal put forward as it will evolve with townspeople. So,
Thank you.
Kelly, you good?
Yeah.
Awesome. For the community comparisons, did you, I know they can't vote. Do you need a vote to sign this?
I think when they meet next that they could sign off,
Yeah,
but you
that's
could,
fine.
you could recommend to them or that the select board is in agreement with it.
Yeah,
I think that's what
the-
you're
the
looking for,
total-
right?
The total package is the whole, it's not the 2-page, or is it the whole thing?
So there's that 5-page is incorrect. You can throw that right in the trash. The 2-page is a condensed version that I was able to get in the 2 pages, but the
Okay.
Excel document, if you guys want to circle the Excel file, that includes all 350 municipalities on there. And like I said, if you want to go in there and change one of those towns on the header, you just type it right into the top, the very top line, the gray bar, and say Boston instead of Templeton, and it will populate everything for you. So you can go in there and play with it if you really want.
Are you, for who we've got here, 3 of us, is everyone okay how it is right now? Yeah, I am. All right, so I make a motion to accept the community comparisons for fiscal year 2023 as presented. Further discussion? Okay, and the motion to accept the community comparisons for fiscal year 2023 as presented. How do you vote? Terry?
Yes.
Tim? Yes. And I vote yes as well.
Appreciate your explanation.
I do it for a living. Explain financials.
All right, so overview, wrap up, we've gone through the due outs. Folks, I think we can call it a day, so I would make a motion to adjourn the joint budget meeting for 2023. Should I do a roll call? I think it called for a roll call. I know I did for like recesses, that was all in favor. I'm just going to do a roll call. Okay, on the motion to adjourn the joint budget meeting, how do you vote? Terry?
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
include them? No. And I'm a yes as well. So we are adjourned at